2 buttons. Wow. Mum never lets me have 2 buttons to press.
Wow. We'll have to cut that one
There
out.
we go. I have the stream.
Excellent.
Yep, sorry.
After a little bit of delay, we are now back at it.
Good morning. So, hello. We're back for day 2 of National Congress, Pirate Party of Australia 2024. My name is Miles. I'm your wonderful host. I'm in chair. Outgoing national president. Today is a very exciting day. It's day 2 of the adventure that is Australian politics. So the business today, let's do kind of a check-in, see who's alive, because I'm not convinced anyone is actually alive yet. We're still recovering from last night. Whatever happened last night. So while that's happening, I will give a little bit of palaver about the day. We've got kind of three items of business today, more or less. The big one is this morning. That is the nominations for electable positions, which is the first item of business we'll go to shortly. After that will take us up to late morning, and then we are scheduled for. Sorry, we have 4 items of business today. After nominations are complete, we will handle any last announced motions, which includes formal policy and constitutional motions, and that'll take us through to lunch. After lunch, we will have a finalize any motion discussion and debating, and then have a address / speech / speaker panel / Q&A from a very interesting speaker. And then after that, we will hold a strategy and party direction discussions, party improvement proposals, general discussion around policies, and free discussion on other topics as well. So given that we've actually dealt with all of the announced motions as of yesterday, well done. Congratulations. Thank you to everyone who participated in that. We did approve the marriage policy in the end, didn't we?
Yes, that did pass.
Well,
excellent.
Yes, it goes to the membership for the full membership adoption vote, yes.
Thank you, along with the caps. So that means we have some space today, and we will fill it with the speaker and general party improvement discussions. I'd like to probably give some kind of a presentation for on general policy, and we can also continue the strategy discussions. But if there's every chance we might also end a little bit early too, if we don't fill the scheduled time. So I think we are about ready to kick off into the first agenda item, but I want to, before we begin the first agenda item, I want to do observe a party tradition at this stage of the year, which is very specific and unique, and yet should be familiar. I want to propose that we temporarily amend the standing orders to allow nominations from the floor for all electable positions that have not yet moved to a vote. I will put a wording for that motion, and then I'll invite feedback from interested parties. Give me 1 second.
Trying to remember if there's actually like a minimum quorum to actually pass motions in this.
I don't recall if Congress actually has a quorum. Alex, do you?
There's not really any quorum specified for Congress. No, it's one of the little peculiarities of how we do things.
Because it has to go to the full member vote. That's where the quorum applies. Two-stage vote. Okay, Alex, feedback on that motion text.
That seems reasonable, and then the chair, as usual, has discretion to mess around with the order of agenda items to an extent. With the chair has discretion to mess around with the order of agenda items with the consent of the Congress floor.
Yep. There's only really one item we can move forward, which is the general strategy discussion. But I'd rather.
But also, we don't want to keep Sean.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I would like to invite Treasurer John August to get on the video call rather than just listening in on the live stream. When it is time for him to speak to his own nomination. But apart from that, I think we can charge on through. Actually, yeah, we should make sure that all of our nominees are here. I see Dr. Liam Fompret is around. I haven't heard from Bryn yet.
Alex, can I get your feedback on the motion text?
I think that's perfectly adequate.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep, just double-checked the Constitution. There is, in fact, no quorum for the National Congress.
Yeah, and Liam's confirmed that as well. Okay, well, let's start a vote on my motion then. And given that we're having a bit of a sleepy start this morning, I'll give it the full. I'll try and give it the full 2 minutes, or at least, at least 1 minute.
Never know. Perhaps someone will wish to contest for shits and giggles.
I've done that. I've voted against adjourning a Congress at the end of the day.
I'll shoot Bryn a text.
Okay, I'm going to call that there. Motion passes. So, floor nominations. Floor nominations are now open for all of the positions, which is to say President, Deputy President, Secretary, Deputy Secretary, Treasurer, Deputy Treasurer, Councillors, and Dispute Resolution Committee and Policy Development Officer. Okay, let's roll. I think it's the time to throw in. Let's open for the voting to begin. So the way this will work is I will hand over chair to the returning officer, who is Sean O'Farrell this weekend, who will chair the meeting for the duration of the votes. At this point also, the current National Council will cease to be the National Council formally, and we will hold the nominations. And sorry, I always mess this bit up. We don't actually vote, even if there's a contested position. We don't vote, right?
Well, we won't hold we won't if there's an uncontested position, then we won't send that to a party vote. Actually, yeah, if there's a contested position, then that doesn't get resolved today. That goes out to a party vote. If there's an uncontested position, then that's resolved today.
Yeah. So for uncontested nominations, the returning officer is instructed by the party to declare the candidate as elected, barring any other circumstances, elected on the spot. So so following the conclusion of the election, all the uncontested nominations would, in theory, immediately begin on the new National Council for 2025. And as is also traditional, if a new national president is elected, which I hope will be the case, then they shall resume as chair for the afternoon, for the rest of Congress. So, barring no questions or comments, I propose we move into that. Okay, well, I hand over hand over chair to Sean O'Farrell as returning officer.
Very well. So, as is tradition, we shall be going in order of seniority for the National Council nominations, which means we will be beginning with the position of president, for which we currently have one nomination from Miles Whitaker. And I suppose we shall wait a minute to see if anyone wishes to nominate from the floor at the last minute. I do not expect any. We shall see.
Please, I'm happy to step down if anyone else wants to go in the big chair. It may actually be too late to nominate anyway.
The motion was to allow nominations from the floor until voting starts. Voting has not started yet.
Fair enough.
Oh, that is actually a fun wording. Given that there may not be any votes held for this.
Oh.
Whatever. We'll resolve the problem by
not caring about the problem.
We'll resolve the
problem by not receiving any nominations.
The position is no longer empty and thus cannot be nominated for.
Would we like to?
Oh, that's been about a minute. So I will presume there are no more nominations incoming. So congratulations, Miles Whitaker. You are once again the president of the Pirate Party of Australia, uncontested for I don't know how many years in a row.
All according to tradition. And
the new president. Which means moving on to the next position, for which we currently have no nominations. Deputy President. Does anybody wish to nominate? Shall wait 1 minute to see if anyone wishes to nominate for the position.
Okay, cool. That's how I want to do it. Yep.
If not, then I shall move on to Secretary. And at the end of... Once I reach the end of all of the nominations, I will give one last chance to see if anyone wishes to nominate for any of the unnominated positions at that time, since I do not see any particular obligation for me to declare a position closed with no nominations.
Okay.
So I shall forestall that until the last practical moment. Looks nobody present who is willing or able to nominate for the position. So we shall move on to secretary, for which we have one nomination. A certain, I don't actually know how to pronounce your last name.
Jago.
Alex Jago? Jago?
Yes. Jago with a J.
Yes. So we have Alex Jago, once again nominating for the position of secretary. Do we have anyone who wishes to contest?
Can I run against myself?
Uh,
I
if
don't
you
think that's allowed. I think that's an abusive procedure.
If you wish to give a nomination speech to try and convince the attending members of your worth as secretary, you may do so.
Attending
I don't know
members
if you
are welcome
happen
to read
prepare
my
a speech, and you're disappointed if you win unopposed.
I'm always disappointed if I win unopposed.
Yes, but did you prepare a speech in the case the position was contested?
I prepared my my nomination, which I'm happy to speak to, as always.
Oh, it's been a minute, and no nominations have come from the floor. So congratulations, Alex Jago. You are once again the secretary of the Pirate Party of Australia.
Woohoo!
Now moving on to the position of deputy secretary. Simon Niesler? I'm presuming the G is somehow silent.
Simon, you're muted. No, you've got a hardware mute. Still can't hear you.
Fantastic pronunciation.
Okay,
It
hear you
is,
now.
it is a silent G.
Excellent. Well, we'll wait a little bit to see if there are any contesting nominations from the floor. Assuming all goes according to tradition.
Can we also take objections?
Any actual elections? Ten seconds left. Okay, that's 1 minute. So congratulations, Simon Niesel. You are once again, actually I don't know if this is once again. You're
No.
currently deputy secretary? Or the outgoing deputy secretary?
Nope.
Simon has previously been deputy secretary, but not consecutively.
There you go. Very well. Congratulations, Simon. You are the new deputy secretary for the Pirate Party of Australia.
Thank you. Thank you to the party.
Moving on to the position of treasurer, for which we have John August returning. So let's get that going. Got 1 minute open for nominations from the floor. Got 30 seconds. 20 seconds left now. Okay, congratulations, John August. You are the new treasurer for the Pirate Party of Australia. A small round of applause. Now, the next two positions in the list are the deputy treasurer and all three councillor positions. We have no nominations for any of those, so I'm just going to open nomination. Just going to wait for any last minute nominations from the floor, but I will be doing all of these at once. So if anyone wishes to nominate for the positions of deputy treasurer or councillor, please do so now, or else I shall move on to the dispute resolution committee. Got 10 seconds left before I move on. Okay. Looks like those positions will not be filled. So, moving ahead to the Dispute Resolution Committee, for which we have 2 positions open and 2 nominations. Those being Liam Pomfret and Bryn Buzai.
Yeah, close enough.
So, if anyone wishes to contest these positions, otherwise they shall both be simply declared the winner. The winners.
How many people are actually online right now?
That is a good question. I am inclined to believe that it consists almost exclusively, if not actually exclusively, of the people currently in the call.
I think Liam's listening in. Zach's listening in. We've got a few people.
We have at least one person who is not part of the call.
Jed B, okay.
Oh, there we
Zach.
go.
There we go. We've got a few people. Good times.
Sorry, I just wanted to double check, that's all.
Oh, regardless, it has been
Oh
a
yeah,
minute.
plus there was wasn't there the, I think PP Weekly might be there too. Might be.
Yep.
Yes.
And thankfully, we've only got a 10
regardless,
seconds. We've got an under 10-second delay, which is good.
That has been a bit over a minute with no further nominations. So congratulations, Liam Pomfret and Bryn Buzai. You are the dispute resolution. You are once again part of the dispute resolution committee. Glad to work with you again.
Thanks. Maybe next year, so that Liam doesn't have to do something. Well, it depends on if we're just gonna do the straight thing. Maybe I'll run the election system. Who knows? But
Maybe.
we'll work it out next year.
Yep. Hopefully, we shall go through another year of having very few disputes to resolve.
Yeah, hopefully in both here and up. But at least we'll be there. We will learn and we'll try and
We'll
hopefully.
be there in case something does happen again.
Yes.
May it ever be thus.
And
We also have policy development officer.
yes, we have one more position, which. So, got one more position on the list, which is the policy development officer. So I'm going to wait 1 minute, and if I do not have nominations for any of the unfilled positions before that point, then I shall declare the elections over and hand the chair back to Miles. So if you wish to hold any particular position, now is your chance. Last chance for the ones that we didn't have a nomination for. Okay, that has been a minute. So, looks like those positions will go unfilled. Hereby declare the nominations section of the agenda completed. And I hand the chair position back to Miles. Miles, take it away.
Thanks a lot, guys. So the next item of business is to deal with any final motions from yesterday. Any announced motions? All right. Thanks a lot, Sean. See you later.
Yep, see you later. I'll probably keep watching and possibly voting if there's anything to vote on from the chat.
I have moderate to high confidence that there's nothing exciting left to vote on, just procedural stuff like break and lunch and so on. Now, we find ourselves with a lovely position of having a few hours to kill. So I'm open to hearing suggestions on what we could or should do. Potentially, we could break for 3 hours. Another option is to move our speaker forward if they are amenable to that. Alex, any thoughts?
Let's say, I think Simon's suggestion might get the thing copy struck. I don't know if Michael is available quite this early. What could we committee of the whole on?
Committee of the what?
Committee of the whole with a W.
Committee of the whole. I don't know. We had kind of like a half a discussion yesterday. I was thinking of doing a little bit of a presentation on some policy stuff, which I'm interested in, but I'm not ready to give that this morning. I want to wait until after lunch.
Yeah, I mean, very extended break. Yeah, we're not used to having stuff done this quickly. It's good in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's no...
Bryn's got his hand raised.
Yes,
incidentally.
sorry, Bryn. You're still muted. Bryn, you try and talk?
Sorry, I was suggesting the standard discussions, and if we could invite any other members of the fusion group, coalition, or whatever, to see if they have any other ideas of plannings for our next, for what we need to do for the next events and next elections, or maybe what protests, counter protests, and hopefully not thinking that, and not thinking that the world's going to, and hopefully hoping that the world isn't going to the complete poo because of the issues of the Israel-Gaza war, Putin being Putin and trying to annex Ukraine and maybe the rest of the former Soviet Union, excluding maybe the Baltic states, and of course Trump v. Harris. But
For my part, I'd be delighted to avoid causing more international incidents on YouTube.
No, I'm keen. Let's go.
Okay, so we're going to develop a new policy proposal.
We support war with Russia,
which is to build a wall around any pairs of countries currently engaged in a war until they sort it out. Yeah, no, that seems like a not great solution.
I'm not in love with that solution.
Gentlemen, if you can hear me here, John August, I'm willing to throw a perspective in on this issue.
Hey, John, go for it.
Okay, now this is something that you actually find if you check out the, I think the surveys. Goodness me, Roy Morgan, that's right. I can only recommend, if you're curious, to have a look at this. Because one of the things that has intrigued me, while I have my own personal views about the justices and injustices of Ukraine and Gaza and so on, if you actually read the surveys that have been done perhaps half a year ago about Gaza, the interesting thing is that the majority of Australians are what you might call isolationists, in the sense that they don't want Australia to support Israel and they don't want Australia to support Hamas, and that it's sort of basically saying that, you know, they're not really fond of people putting flags up for either nation. So I encourage you to look at some of the Roy Morgan polls. But one of the things that I'm intrigued by, even though I have my own passionate views, is, you know, what do the majority of Australians feel? And it does seem, when you look under the surface, that it's the niche issue of 5% of the population ranting and raving, and the rest of the population either having some sympathy or shaking their heads and worrying about things like the cost of living and so on. And that's not intended to be excessively provocative, and you can check out the Roy Morgan polls yourself. But for me, one intriguing issue is when we have domestic issues of like cost of living, you know, affordability of you know, property and so on, what is it that prompts Australians to worry about our foreign policy position? And I think, for my own thinking, things like the Indonesian mass killings, Balibo 5, Timor-Leste, West Papua, which are issues of injustice close to us, for me, I find them quite interesting. And I suppose I'm winding the clock back a bit, but when we were bugging people from Timor-Leste, our then foreign minister was saying, you know, look, we were very helpful with Timor-Leste being born, and now look at them, they're ungrateful. But I think if you roll back history further, we owe both the US and Timor-Leste during World War II and the support that they actually gave us as a nation in the battle we were involved with. But when you think about it, we seem to take the debt we owe the US much more seriously than the debt we owe Timor-Leste. So there's me rabbiting on about foreign policy hypocrisy. But yeah, I don't want to dominate things too much, but equally just to get things started. There's some thoughts anyway.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, John. I have my opinions on geopolitics are a large amount of them are up on Facebook. Since most of my commentary has actually been around Israel and Palestine, since the attack on October 7th, I've been increasingly involved, discussing it with my Jewish friends, but also with many Arabic and Palestinian activists and organizers. And my personal position, which is not party policy for Fusion of Pirates, has increasingly come down on the side of the Palestinians. Interestingly enough, that's largely been a response to my engagement with Zionists and with Israeli media. I've become increasingly convinced that Israel has a greater moral burden to bear in that situation, a greater moral responsibility, and greater moral capacity to act. And that outweighs, even if you think the atrocities from one side are worse than the other, that outweighs that. So I believe this is also a pirate issue on at least 2 points. One is that the Pirate Party of Israel is quite active, especially in the international movement. And I consider Keith Gilman from the Israeli Pirate Party to be a friend. I have a lot of respect for him. But at the same time, also, I haven't. I know the U.S. Pirate Party has formally joined on to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, and so there was some uncomfortable questions there, as the U.S. Pirate Party is an active member of the international movement. Now, for my part, I haven't really pushed Keith on it. The other aspect in which this is a pirate issue is the use of Lavender AI, which I talked about briefly yesterday. And I'll pull up the article again because it's quite powerful and very scary. And so what happened was there's a whistleblower from inside the Israeli intelligence team, and it looks like the entire team in charge of targeting assessment for the Israeli armed forces, both air and ground, have made extensive use of AI targeting systems using machine learning algorithms. And due to the pressure from various agencies to provide up-to-date and accessible targeting information, those targeting agencies have resulted to fully AI systems with little or no human oversight, and have additionally increased the number of acceptable civilian casualties. This system is called Lavender, and there was 6 Israeli intelligence whistleblowers who provided this background information. I'll link it in the Discord chat for people to review. I know that in the past, there have been mixed feelings on the involvement of the Pirate Party with the anti-war movement, and some have been very enthusiastically, particularly with Julian Assange being heavily involved in the anti-war movement. People know Julian as a whistleblower more so than an anti-war activist. But fundamentally, his personal political motivations are much more in the anti-war space. And we can all remember Collateral Murder, which he released around, I think it was 11 years ago or 12 years ago now, which I think is very strong evidence for why he so strongly supports that position. And so he was opposing a lot of the issues that we're seeing with Lavender and with automated targeting systems. So what I'll those are sort of two of my big points on geopolitics. Simon, yeah, what, you want to say something?
I guess since we're all on this topic, I might as well put my two bob in. I see things not too differently, but also differently. Maybe a bit unconventional, but I see it more as it is. Even though I agree with John that it is something that is a bit disproportionately focused on. It's despite that, it's still important to focus on all kind of injustices over the world. Just because it's happening far away doesn't mean that we should turn a blind eye to suffering that's happening elsewhere. And there's a lot of atrocities happening that aren't getting enough attention. There's a lot going on in many different countries. It's hard to put it into the human consciousness, all the different sufferings happening at once, and I hope that the world can turn around and become a place without suffering. When it comes to this particular conflict itself, there's a lot of history going on there where fundamentally two large groups of people who fundamentally disagree with one another. They both have different perspectives of how they see things, which are incompatible with each other's views, even though the way that they want to resolve it is largely similar. It's a really tough one. There's a lot of innocent people stuck in the middle, innocent people who are not capable of being anything other than innocent, such as children. I'm sort of the opinion that people who do want to fight should be allowed to sort it out how they want to, but away from everyone else who does not want to be part of it. Like if there's some sort of Sparta gladiator Olympic Games spectacle that they want to have a chance of taking it on with each other, so be it. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem like a realistic option, and I think more should be done to get people out of the situation if they don't want to be part of it. But people don't necessarily sign up for things just because they happen to be born to certain parents in a certain geography. And I see it more as an issue of authoritarian tyrants who is sort of leading the people into hatred and battle, as opposed to trying to bring people together. And I'm always going to be on the side of the people, I guess, not of the tyrants. They play hand in hand with each other to further the conflict further for their own political gain. And I feel like the International Court of Justice, they're on the right track with the sort of rulings that they've been putting out. I think it's very, very nuanced. They've put out arrest warrants for top leaders of Hamas and of Israel who have been doing the worst wrongdoing. I think more attention should be paid to that. That these people who have arrest warrants out on them, they're the ones who are furthering the conflict. And what I'd also like to see is like an actual plan put out for peace. Like there's a lot of violence happening at the moment with the invasion of Gaza, but what's the plan for after that offensive is complete? How is Gaza going to be rebuilt? What is the long-term solution? Where obviously it's a lot of violence which has happened, which has radicalized another generation. It will come back to bite Israel with the way that they've been heading. So, what's the plan to repair everything that's done? Is there a plan? It looks like probably not. This is just short term thinking. No knee-jerk reactions. No real plan. Not people of both sides not really holding themselves to a very high standard of humanity to avoid suffering. It's it's an us versus them situation, and just really sad all around. So it's not really much we can do as Australians or as Australia to do anything about it. We're not a major world player, so I think we just need to lead by example. We have good multiculturalism in Australia. Arabs and Jewish people have always got along for many years. Things are a bit tense at the moment, but thankfully nothing too bad has happened so far, and I hope it doesn't. So I think we just need to put our best foot forward and advocate for peace, and hopefully the people, our friends in Middle East, can put aside the differences over a long period of time and work out how to get along with each other.
I'll invite everyone else to put forward thoughts on Israel-Palestine or on geopolitics or world politics. What are people's thoughts on Kamala Harris? Do we like her, or is she a cab?
I mean,
She's an improvement over previous and other options, I suppose. But, I mean, it's not to say that she hasn't done some good things in law reform. She's made mistakes, some pretty bad ones, but the democracy system in the US doesn't provide for a lot of options. It's winner takes all kind of thing. So not the worst, not the best.
yeah. I'd like to highlight Zach's comment from the chat. I think we all wish for competent and just leaders. I think if elected, Kamala Harris will be a fairly normal US president, and the US the US does a lot of things in the world, but as a force for stability and the status quo, you could do worse. You could do a lot worse.
Well, I'll throw something in and observe that while I certainly support Kamala Harris, and in terms of like her support of women's reproductive rights, not that I'm in the US, it's a problem for the US to sort out. But my major observation is when Obama came in as president, there was this world feeling across the world that things would now be different and everything would turn around 180 degrees. And that didn't happen. And I have a feeling Kamala Harris may well become president, and everyone will have these expectations of her like we had of Obama, and then we'll realize it's the same show on repeat, really. So that's my both positive and cynical observation about Kamala Harris.
Look, I echo those feelings as well, but we have to give people a chance. It's not like we have a lot of choices out there, and I just also want to point out that us as Australians, we absolutely entitled to have opinions about US politics, because we're basically a vassal state of the US, where we do what they say. They have influence over our political system. They say we need to buy submarines. We have to buy submarines. We're dependent on them for our protection. For the money that we spend on these submarines and so on, it's basically us having taxation, the US tax, but without representation. So perhaps we should have a seat in their Congress in exchange for those subs, I reckon. I also want to point out another fantastic candidate is Vermin Supreme for the U.S. Pirate Party. Previously ran with the Libertarian Party, or is an interesting fella, and definitely that's the sort of candidate which is needed in such a two-horse race over there where they don't have preferential voting. You need candidates out there to draw attention to how much of a fuss the US presidential race is. And in regards to your comments about the establishment, Obama definitely disappointment. He campaigned very heavily that I would be the first black president, but in all his time in office, he didn't really do anything for civil rights for black people. And then towards the end, as he was outgoing, he started talking about police brutality and said, "Oh well, that's going to be an issue for the next president." It's not something that he acted on. I thought that was very disappointing, but it was an achievement for the people to, get past that mold and vote a black president in, not for him, but for Obama himself. And I think this attitude is what contributed to the loss of Hillary Clinton, where she campaigned very heavily on the fact that she would be the first woman president, but didn't bring many other things to the table, and she was very much expecting just to win based off that, and obviously that was an upset loss. This time around, I'm watching a bit more carefully. I think that Camilla is not playing off the ID politics to say vote me in because I'm a particular color or gender or anything. She's saying this is what I want to do. These are my policies. This is how we can make America better. Whether she would deliver or not, don't know. But everyone deserves a chance, I guess. Compared to the alternative option is someone who's definitely campaigning on a lot of policy that would make America worse. So that's definitely a sure thing to make things worse. Where Camilla is a maybe that things could be better or at least stay the same. I don't want to say can it get worse. I mean, probably could, but I don't know. It's not a very great situation over there. Political wise, I think their democracy could be improved quite a lot. I find that countries with better democracies have less violence. People need to feel represented, and democracy provides a non-violent way to get views across. So as long as people believe that they're being heard, there's generally less violence. But there's a lot of violence in America, a lot of gun violence. Perhaps if people could be heard better and make a political difference, there would be more stability.
Bryn.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if I was an idiot and I went to the TAB, who wants to think that if I put a bet down that there's going to be a... No, I don't think this is going to get my mouth up on stream, but say that the violence is going to end up tearing America apart completely. Hopefully it doesn't, but if I was to make a more sure bet of the TAB, what would I do? Not that I should.
Maybe not ethical to place bets on it, but it is definitely a concern that the things are so hyper-partisan there that it's heading in that direction of a civil war. Very close with that January 6th event.
I've got a sneaky suspicion that if Kamala does win, there's going to be a January the 6th again.
Well,
And
some
this
some of
time
them have
they
actually
might-
said that. They said if Carmelo wins, we're gonna rise up. Some of them have actually said that. So, they some of them are not prepared to accept the democratic outcome.
Yeah,
And
and I bet you do you expect that instead of just protesting and invading? Wait, did anyone on January the 6th? Yeah, they carried weapons, didn't they? Then
at least, yeah, well, I'm
then
sure.
they'll go to the next step, which is actually firing the weapons. And so, January the 6th, the entire Congress was executed and then they rushed down and they systematically eliminated everyone all the way up to, I think right now it's only 2 people that have to die before a Republican gets into power. And said Republican, definitely would happily do what Trump wants.
All right, let's
let's get
I
over
want to
that.
propose. I want
It's
to
very
propose
colourful.
we bring this to a close and have an extended lunch break from. So our next we have a speaker scheduled to speak at 2 p.m.
I could probably bring that forward to 12.
Probably or definitely.
I would have to take a break so I can check with them.
Okay, but like the decision to make a break is now. So,
If you give me a moment, I'll go call them.
all right. In the meantime, can I propose that? Let me see. John, you have a radio show, right? How is your new radio show going?
Okay, so yes, radio shows. So there's a group trying to organise a coup at the old radio station. I'm amongst a group of 3 people who are trying to organise that. And I have
Can you
made-
announce that publicly?
Yes.
Is that a good idea?
Well, okay. Well, I hope none of my opponents are listening. But anyway, so I suppose what else is there? But yes, there is a new radio station I'm currently negotiating with. I've done a lot of training and a lot of bits and pieces, but I've got myself lost and resentful of the bureaucracy at that radio station. So the one thing that they want me to do at this stage, well, actually, there's a few things going on there. One thing is that they want me to do a supplementary course in broadcast law, and I'm saying, well, hang on, I did actually do a Cert 4 in radio broadcast, and they're still wanting me to do this supplementary course. And what I'm going to do is push back and say, well, I did this course at this time. If you can actually point to an area of law that has changed in the meantime, then maybe I'll do your damned, sort of supplementary course. The other thing I've also been negotiating with is that they're talking about charging me air fees, which for a 1-hour show would probably be about $500 a year. And then there's mutterings of, well, if I have a sponsor, then maybe I wouldn't have to pay it. Now, you might remember Jason Mead, who has actually helped with some of the videos that I put forward as Pirate Party speeches. And his runs an ISP. I'll give him a plug and hope that's not too offensive to people. But Ripple Networks Jason is not in the Pirate Party, but he has certainly helped as a sort of a fellow traveller, shall we say. And he's been instrumental in helping out with some of the speeches that I have put forward. Anyway, so he's got an ISP. I am one of his customers, and it should be possible to get him to at least do an advertising campaign with the radio station, and then we look at how effective it has been. But I've also said, well, look, give me details on, what sponsorship actually means, what sort of sponsorship program would cover how many hours for how long. And, let's say I have gotten lost in the bureaucracy at the radio station because they've been hitting me with one thing after another and sort of making life very difficult because, like, they wanted me to have a working with children check. And they were getting really obstreperous. You've got to have a working with children check. And I'm sort of saying, well, can't we work on some other issues while I get that sorted out? And then ultimately I did get that sorted out after I applied for a new passport, paid $400, finally got a passport. because at least in New South Wales, a Working with Children check, the requirements to identify that you really are who you claim to be are really quite onerous. But you know me, I have multiple issues with escalating levels of bureaucracy all over the place.
You ready? Okay,
We are back.
Early.
Okay, well, anyway, in answer to Miles' question, the short answer is things are in progress, but those who know me well enough will know that my resentment about bureaucracy is escalating and developing. But who knows? Let's say I make this challenge and say, look, if you can point to an area of broadcast law that has changed since I've done the course, I'll do your damn course. And if they actually do that and get back to me, then I'll do their course. But the point is, I'm obliging them to make an effort in my case and not just blindly apply an one-size-fits-all bureaucratic approach. And that is one thing I've noticed about this station, is that they're very top-heavy on oppressive bureaucracy that shows total inflexibility. Different community radio stations have different strengths and weaknesses, the level of bureaucracy. And also there's so many things that are done at the station, and you can see there the shadow of some idiot did something 10 years ago that they don't want done. And so they've still got the regulation in place to stop that from happening again. And you can see so many shadows of that nature all over the station. But anyway, look, I'll leave my comments there, and let's just say, who knows, maybe sometime soon that will happen. I know that there are people involved in the Whistleblowers Network who do want to speak on my radio show, assume it happens. If that becomes a washout, I will actually make a special episode of my podcast and interview these people. But anyway, so the summary is things are in progress. Maybe they will happen. My level of resentment about the bureaucracy is growing. Okay, there you go. Is that answering your question, Miles?
Yeah, thanks. Have and what about Speaker's Corner? Anything cool going on there?
How
was your last week?
Okay, well, I will say that I have actually been developing a position on Julian Assange, and I hope pirates would agree with it, but the general sentiment has been that it's better to have Julian Assange free than in prison. But he may be free from prison, but he is not free to speak. He's not free to do his things. And his actions have not in any sense been endorsed by any administration. The Australian government has not said it's a good thing what Julian Assange did. They've said, well, we've made a deal with the US and now he's free from imprisonment, but he's still very constrained in what he can do and say. Because like in terms of the state control of us, obviously at the one level they can lock us up in prison, but short of that, there's a whole lot of other things they can have. You can have, you can have home arrest, you can have ankle bracelets, you can have periodic detention, you can have some sort of bond, community service bond. You know what I mean? Like just because the state is not locking you up in prison doesn't mean that it's there's too many negatives here, but you understand it can still be thoroughly controlling and coercing you. And what's happened here is we, as the US lapdog, have made a deal with the US where the US has sort of let Julian Assange go free, but hasn't admitted any responsibility on their part that Julian Assange has done anything right, has put a light on any US excesses. It's all been this sort of deal where he's let loose, but it's sort of like, what's the word for it? He's been let out of prison, but he's got sticky tape over his mouth sort of thing. That's the way of describing it. To give the Albanese government some credit, they've taken it more seriously than other governments, but they've still been seriously politically constrained in terms of what they've been able to do. And it's obviously a deal between us, the lapdog, and US, the big mobster over there, that we've had to kiss their ring, and they've sort of shrugged and got, oh yeah, all right, you can do blah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. But anyway, the point is that is a position that I have developed at Speaker's Corner, and that's something I put forward, and people were reasonably interested in that. And I suppose what else I can also say, actually, now that I'm thinking about what you're saying, Miles, I did actually get one Sydney member turning up to a Speaker's Corner, and I think they actually commented on the New South Wales chat that they found it quite enjoyable to turn up to, right? So that's the other side of it, that Now, I've also invited Andrew to turn up, but his, seems eternally too busy. I think Andrew's, I don't know what they are, but I think he's got other things going on in his life, which is sad, but well, it is a life that he has to lead, I suppose. Yeah, but anyway, Miles, I think I've sort of answered your question. Again, I answered it in one way, and then I thought, hang on, maybe you're just thinking, is Speaker's Corner happening in any way that's linking up to pirates in Sydney? There was one pirate that actually turned up, had a bit of a look, and did at least like what he saw. So that has happened. But the idea of it forming a catalyst for some renewal of interest in Sydney, sad to say, has not happened. So I'll leave it at that for present. I think other people have got their hands up to speak.
Good one, John. Just also to point out that there's still many war criminals out there, both American and Australian, who have not been brought to justice for their crimes. And we have David McBride in prison for speaking out about it. We have other whistleblowers like Richard Boyle for Tax Office, the whistleblower, who's still under threat of being prosecuted. This fight is far from over. Just letting Julian out of prison is nowhere near far enough, and this is a fight that we need to continue to have.
If I can just butt in briefly there, I endorse that position, and I'm not just doing this out of opportunity, but it may well be that if we can articulate a solid position which says, yes, Mr. Assange is free, but that is the beginning, not the end of the story, and actually get political traction with that, and a continued concern about transparency, protection of whistleblowers, and so on, I still think there may be, dare I say it, I don't want to take advantage of Mr. Assange's situation, which is not good, but we can still, I guess, take political advantage of this situation and put a spotlight on this situation and perhaps get more media traction. In a sense, yes, he's being released from prison, but there's still something of concern that can be put a spotlight on.
I'll talk to you after the conference. I have some contacts with the Free Assange movement. We'll see if we can get some things happening.
Yeah, John, do you remember Mouse from Melbourne? Laura Killigan?
Laura, that's her name. Yes, yes, I do remember Mouse now. There were some media releases, I think actually two of them that we actually collaborated on. One recently and another going back a number of years. So I suppose in a case, I think Mouse is a very positive example of the fact that you don't need to be in the committee in order to contribute to, pirate party operations and the preparations of media releases. But as far as I understand, some people want to be backroom people and other people are willing to be the spokespeople and have their names on media releases. I think Mouse did want to do something, but equally wanted to keep her head below the parapet as well. But yes, but in any case, yes, I do remember Mouse, and that she was, there were two media releases that I prepared in collaboration with her. That's true. But you wanted to say something more, I suspect.
I also want to point out that there's many others within the broader Fusion collective who are very keen on whistleblowers protection, and speaking out against injustices should not necessarily be limited to just pirates. We have a lot of allies out there, and we should be working together to get things done.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of which as well...
Does Bryn have his hand up? Does he want to speak, or is that just an accident? Like, Bryn's left his blinker on to turn left and forgot to turn it off.
I have a few words from the president of Fusion, Drew Wolfendale, which he's invited me to read out. The sentiments that were delivered at the Fusion Party SGM a couple of weeks ago, as follows. When Fusion formed, Along with many other party mergers that occurred at the time, many people doubted us, including amongst our current members. Nonetheless, more than 2 years on from the inaugural federal election, we are still here and we're in good shape. 2 years post-election is usually the lowest point for a party with unelected members. It's when most parties disband, and it's when membership is usually at its lowest. However, we passed that mark with flying colours this year, with on-the-ground campaigns in Victoria, a firmed-up identity, and with membership comfortably above the registration threshold. For a party like ours, with many historic organisational challenges we've had to overcome to get here, this was historical and can be seen in the attrition rate among parties that are our peers in the last election. The motions today at the special general meeting are key to the ongoing work to prepare our systems and processes to sustainably deliver our vision in the next election and future elections to come. So thank you. There will be opportunity to hear things are happening in the party and for general discussion after the main business. And so at that special general meeting, I also just want to point out that we put through a massive effort and in total had, let me just count the number of attendees. Uh, 28 in-person attendees.
Good morning, guys.
Michael, how are you doing?
Very well, Miles. Very well. Just how big's the convention? Good morning, Simon.
Good morning. Thank you for coming.
That's all right. It's a pleasure, mate. I don't often get up this early on a Sunday morning, I can assure you. My time's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, between 2 to 3. That's it. That's my day.
I'd like to welcome Councillor Michael Glenatzis from Yarra City Council in Greater Melbourne.
Yeah, good morning to everyone.
How are you doing, Michael?
Very well, thank you.
Had your coffee yet this morning?
Yeah, I had one. Yeah, that's enough. Just lit a fire, just warm up the place. It's absolutely freezing down here. Rain.
Great.
Bucket. Yeah.
Oh, it's cold up here too. I've got the jacket on and everything.
Wow. No, it's buckety out here, man. It's buckety. Sometimes on and off. Ah, right.
So I'm told you have a few words for us.
A few words for you.
Yeah.
The wonderful. You want to know something about myself? All right. I'll just briefly give you a rundown of what I'm all about. My name is Michael Glenatzis. I've lived in Yarra or had businesses in Yarra since 1980 or thereabouts, 80s. So it's a fairly long haul. 2 businesses. One's a mechanical repair business I had. And then I ventured into from the grease and the oils and the mechanical repairs to running a restaurant, which I'm currently at the moment. That's an icon. I call it an icon, or we all call it the Aegean Restaurant. Married, 2 daughters, 1 granddaughter, 5 brothers, 1 sister. Wow, so it's and I ventured into this 2020 council election on a stint because I was having issues with a neighbour, taking over laneways, and council wanting to sell laneways and collect money. And from there, I didn't get in, but lo and behold, one of the councillors decided to run for state parliament. She got in, and I just got in. I snuck in by 17 votes. So that's me at council. I've been there now for about 15, 16 months, I think it is, from January 23. Long haul. It's a tough gig when you side with the people that want transparency, people that want to make sure that council runs properly, like Stephen Jolly and Bridget O'Brien and myself, the 3 of us. And, we got pushed around, and I'm still being pushed around. So, yeah. No transparency at all. Absolutely zero. They don't want to give us anything. Lies to the hilt as much as you want. They don't care about the residents. All they care about is their own back and their wages, and how to take ratepayers' money off them. What else can we take? What else can we say? Bunch of turds. That's what they are. We have secret meetings, is what we call briefings, that we're not allowed to do anything. We're not allowed to have note. We can take note, write notes, but that's about it. The rest is all secretive. And I've noticed that Bridget and Stephen don't go to these meetings because of all the backstabbing and just a waste of time, because no one listens to you anyway, and you get outvoted. And we're on a 6-3, 6 Greens or others, and 3 of us, and we on the odd occasion we do get a win. We get a win, which is good. It's gratifying to get a win. Yeah, that's about it at the moment.
Do you take questions, Michael?
I'd take any question.
My question for you is as someone who I would describe as being more culturally conservative, being a business owner and such, in a progressive area, aligning yourself with other progressive councillors in Bridget and Stephen. How do you find the mix to be a would you describe yourself as being a progressive conservative or something of that nature? How do social issues impact you?
I could honestly see the not the dissatisfaction, but what's the word? I can't really do it. I could see how the Bridget and Steve see it, as in, number one, the social side of it, the social housing. I could also see Bridget's side of it, which is inclusiveness, the environment. We all love the environment. I can't see why or how it doesn't impact me at all. I could see myself as I could fit in. I just sort of blend in, and I can fit in. Yeah, I can fit in with these people. I could put up a good fight too as well. So
fair enough. And how about the people of Yarra? In the area that you're in, the issues that people face.
Look, they're very varied. You got issues with one instance, Brielle pointed out to me the other day, or on an email, saying that Wellington Street, one of the crossings, is going to, someone will get killed. So I've mentioned it, within 7 months, at least 2 or 3 times to officers to do something about it. And it's we're doing it, we're still waiting. So there's ways around it. We just get a petition going, and we'll push it with Stephen. Between the 3 of us, we'll get some traction, I can assure you. Issues. Collingwood is a working man's area at the moment, and obviously we all know it's the gay capital of Melbourne, more or less. It's taken over from some St Kilda. So we do have a lot of progressive young execs living in the area, but we also have a lot of social housing tenants in the towers and social housing down there. And we also have a lot of a lot of the workers or the staff, the employees that live around the area that contribute to the economy, which is the cafes and all the bars and live music venues. Yeah, so it's a pretty diverse area, Collingwood and Fitzroy. There are some Bridget's area is a little bit different. North Carlton's a little bit different. Richmond, well, Cremorne, that's just an office space, a multi, levels, massive amounts of buildings going on. So, yeah, it's a lot going on down there, Simon, and we all have to help each other, help them as much as we can. If they've got gripes, we'll tackle it. Doesn't matter how small it is.
Great. I think there's some questions from Miles.
Can't hear.
Michael, tell us about the. You're obviously Greek. You run a Greek restaurant, and you've been in the area for many decades. Tell us about the Greek community in Melbourne more broadly.
In Melbourne, okay. Massive. There was a massive Greek community in the early '60s when I arrived, and I lived in Abbotsford, which is not far from Collingwood, or the restaurant. I went to the state school there. The area around the city, which is Collingwood, Fitzroy, Abbotsford, Richmond, was more or less predominantly Greek. We as Greeks more or less cornered the whole suburb because of the immigrants coming in, finding work, labour. Over the years, everyone decided to disperse and go out to Doncaster, out in the outer suburbs, thinking that it was better pastures or whatever. Oakley, out towards the Oakley area. At the moment, it's the other Greek capital that's evolved around the Greeks coming in, and they've increased it. I think it's about over 500,000 Greeks in Melbourne. We've got our own, just about everything, Greek churches everywhere. Massive Greek community centre in the corner of Lonsdale Street and Russell Street, I think it is. Well, yeah, so we try and keep our culture as close as we can. We go to our functions, the Greek, we celebrate a lot of the saints, Saint Nicholas or St. George or St. Michael on a day, monthly basis or whatever they occur. We go to church. Well, I haven't been to church actually for a long time since I got married. So, a couple of times, yes. Yeah, Chris and my two daughters. That was the last one. Getting up early in the morning is a bit hard for me, Miles. Greeks, yeah, we run the show.
So, I guess a follow-up there. The Greek community is obviously religious. Most of those would be Orthodox, the Greek Orthodox Church. Is that right?
Yep, Greek Orthodox, yep.
Yeah. So politically, where does the Greek community stand? Because some
Labor.
strong Labor. Yeah,
Labor.
In terms of policies, the different churches, some are progressive and some are very conservative, though.
No, you've got two factions in the Greek church, or you've got one that is controlled by the Archbishop in Sydney and one here in Melbourne. So they do fight, but no one takes any notice of the bloody thing. It's all the interesting things. Especially the Greeks, they couldn't give a shit. Well, they don't care. Trust me. They just do what they want to do. Owen, good morning.
Well, welcome, Owen. I'd like to invite any questions from viewers, from participants, and also a reminder that you're invited to join the Jitsi meeting for members who want to use audio and video. Please put your questions in for Michael Klenatsis in chat. Good comment from Jed B in text. The Progressive Conservative isn't very informative about what issues people actually care about. You're right. That is entirely on me. It's a very simplified, reductive way to look at things, especially when we look at religious groups or movements. As sometimes they are very socially progressive and economically progressive, even though stereotypically religion may be seen as conservative. We've got a hand up from, I think, John. You went first. John, you want to say something?
Okay, I'd just like to say that, yes, on my own past radio show, I did have a roughly half-hour interview with Bridget, so I did have her calling in. And it was interesting, some of the stories she was telling about how the Greens wanted to own everything that was progressive, because in her view, she was pushing some things that were, quite positive about gender diversity. And the Greens were trying to stomp down on it, because they wanted to own all such positive initiatives. Now, I know me personally, in the Pirates and activism in Sydney, I would like to think that I'm positive enough that if somebody else is doing something positive, I will get behind that. Now, I do know when the Pope was in Sydney, there was a particular group called Sydney Atheists, and they took lead, and all of us other humanists, various other atheist groups, we all sort, and indeed, your socialist groups, your various activist groups, we all sort of got into line behind them, because they were the ones with the energy, and we queued up behind them to help. So, that's my sort of attitude, is that if somebody else is doing something positive, you don't try to undermine them. But that was, in fact, the story that came through, not to say that the Greens never do anything good, but they really wanted to claim a monopoly on anything good that was in their wheelhouse, and it was actually quite destructive. Now, I used to have that interview as part of my podcast, but then I got annoyed with the podcast hosting, and I think I've only got 10 shows there these days. But once upon a time, that interview was up for people to listen to.
Great, thanks a lot. We had another hand up. I think, Simon, did you have your hand up before?
I didn't know.
Okay. Do we have any other comments or suggestions? There's a little bit of text chat going on. Alex, did you put your hand up?
Yeah. Hey, Michael.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Very well, thanks. So, as we know, Yarra has recently been forcibly switched from multi-member districts to single-member districts. What's the plan? Do you welcome the narrowing of the area, or do you think it's a regression, especially considering how small your districts are in Yarra?
That's right. Yeah. Well, we currently, before they start doing it, we've got around about the 30,000 residents in Language Ward, but that sort of takes in quite a few suburbs, and we share it between the three of us. And I feel that sharing is a little bit much better than individual, because we're going to have a massive battle. We're going to deal with 9,000 individual residents in the community to be able to answer to. And if I've got a question, who do I ask? Do I ask Bridget? Bridget will say, look, I've got my own problems. Deal with it. Stevenson's going to be the same as well. It's going to be a tough gig doing it by yourself. Really tough. So I don't know. I suppose we'll only find out whoever gets in, and the first 3 months will give us an indication of what's going to happen, or how hard it's going to be. But it's a state government initiative to stamp out all the little parties. That's all it is. Agreed.
Okay, we've got a question/comment from Simon next.
No, I don't think I do.
Sorry, that's Owen. I misread.
Yeah, I was hoping to ask Michael, if we think about, pirate policies and I guess how they would apply to council, I guess, what are your thoughts on, I guess, transparency, corruption within Yarra Council? Is there anything that comes to mind?
That's right, Owen. It's there, definitely there. If they can't even lie properly. Seriously, they cannot lie properly.
Interesting way of putting it.
Look at you in the face and lie absolutely nothing. I got in the last briefing, for argument's sake, I got the CEO attacked me on two fronts. One was I had put a little in my newsletter saying about the angled parking. Right, they're going to take it away. Council's going to take. So she's had a go at me over that issue, thinking that I put it in. But little does she know, in the 2022, whatever they did then, they brought that strategy in. So the actual strategy is to get rid of angled parking, and it's all black and white, right? So
you're saying the council CEO, they're the one who suggested it in the first place.
That's right, yeah. Well, not her, but it might have been the previous.
Well, her team, yeah.
So she didn't do her homework, and she was getting a lot of feedback from the residents. Furor,
saying it should stay. Okay.
Yeah. So, and she's having a go at me, having a go at the three of us, putting it all out to the community. This is what we bring out. It's not that, and also I got supposedly done for recording the meeting, which I opened up one of the files that you sent to me, and it must have come up on it. And I had the ex-mayor beside me, and she said, "Are you recording?" I said, "No, what are you recording?"
Oh.
Yeah,
but recording a meeting isn't allowed. It seems a bit odd.
No, it's not allowed. Oh. You're not allowed to. So you can't. They don't give you any paperwork. You're not allowed to have anything hard copy, right? So they just come out with the officers with their bullshit, whatever they come up with, put on the screen, and that's it. That's your meeting.
Have you the people you speak to in the community? I guess they must be pretty outraged. This notion of secret meetings, lies. Yeah. But I guess how would they hear about it? I guess we need to be spreading the word in Yarra.
That's right. Well, they don't know what we have to go through, but this is what we've got to put up with, and we do get intimidated, and our backs up and say, "Fuck, whoops, sorry, F you," and let's go straight to the media. Let's put it out there, the truth.
I just want to acknowledge that Michael's a whistleblower.
Yeah, I don't mind. I've been bailed into her office twice for speaking to the media, and I said to her last time, I said, "Look, next time you want me to call me in, by all means, but I'll have someone sitting right beside me to make sure that your lies don't come out any further." Yeah, so we arc up that, I can assure you. But there are some shonky councillors, my friends.
John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw in that one known way of gaming the system or gaming process is, there's this requirement to consult. And what we've noticed is a lot of the time, so-called consultation is to herd some people into a room, tell them what they're going to do, not accept questions and leave. And then they tick the box and claim that they have consulted with the community. Yeah. So, there's so many ways of abusing, whether you might call it democratic process or checks and balances or whatever. But yeah, I think, the abusive process is something of an art form, and perhaps I'm being a bit wrong-headed to think maybe it's been happening for decades. But we're starting to identify it and point a finger at it more effectively, I'd like to think.
Yeah, you're dead right, John. Dead right there. They manipulate the system there. They've got sharks in there. So, but we're on to it slowly. They know, and they're all, what's the word, shitting bricks at the moment, as far as I know. Yeah, they're very concerned about what we can produce.
Tell us about your Holdens, Michael. How you fix them up.
I have got a mechanical workshop. I did have one opposite the restaurant in Brunswick Street, Fitzroy, for about 15 odd years. And when the Catholic Church decided to take over the restaurant, the property, I found another little spot down in Sackville Street, not Johnson Street actually, and I went to an auction. I bought the place instead of renting it, and I accumulated at once about 13 Holdens, early model Holdens, 13 I think it was. Currently, I've got one here in a HQ ute that's been in the weather, untouched for quite a few years. My wife's cracked it; she's going to scrap it. I've got one ute that's been on the hoist for 5 years, so I still haven't finished it. Another one which I've finished, so that's up. So I've got about half a dozen utes and one sedan. Which I
fantastic. What is it about these old machines that you love about them, and how does it
the style
to the new stuff?
The style and steel bumper bars, Simon. Steel bumper bars. Yes.
Do they still make them like they used to? What would you say about the quality of products these days?
Nah, it's all plastic. It's all throwaway. Plastic could be, yeah. Sorry.
Actually, Michael, on that note, one of the pirate policies is talking about, the right to repair things, especially when we think of like anything electronic. I mean, are you familiar with the scandal about John Deere, for instance?
No, not that one. What is it?
It's so the idea, like, old tractors, John Deere has like almost a monopoly status there. And, for the farmers, they're very used to, getting their hands dirty. Fixing if something breaks, you can't wait a week to call the guy to come out and fix it. Right. And so, like, they're used to being able to fix their own tractors, but they're banned from doing so at the moment. Even if they get a part that fits, a new part that works for their tractor, it doesn't have the electronic signature, so the tractor just won't let the machine run. Yeah,
right.
You see, Apple is notorious for that sort of thing as well.
Right.
So yeah, like a big part of pirate policy is like, getting out of the way, getting rid of, pointless laws that, just enforce the continuation of monopolies. And so, yeah, giving people freedom.
We've got a similar occurrence with the new cars that come in, all the computers, and the only way that you can get onto it is plug a scan tool in it, and if you don't update your scan tool on a regular basis once a year, costs you a couple of $1,000 just to do that, just to get that particular model. Otherwise, you can't get into it. You can't do anything. It's got to go back to the dealer. Yeah, it's sad. Whereas the old ones, mate, you had nothing. All you had was a distributor, set of points, or electronic ignition, and flick it over. None of this, the key, turning the key, and you've got to get a key coded, and costs $1,000 sometimes to get one key. Yeah, so.
Simon, I understand that there's a lot of push at the moment in relation to video games as well, locking people out and that sort of thing. Are you able to elaborate on that?
Yeah, definitely. So, it's been I guess a pastime to be able to modify games where if you've bought a copy of a game, you own a license to use that, but still that these licenses are becoming very restrictive, where they're saying you're not allowed to make any change to it. So if you release a modification to a game and the publisher doesn't like that, they can. There has been cases of legal action being taken against the person making that modification, and I can understand to an extent if it impacts other players to cheat or something like that, but not just single player games just for their own enjoyment. It's just a bit of a control move to say we own all the creativity to it. You can't build off that creativity to add your own, and then it's become even worse lately, where it's not just being able to modify the game, but just to keep the game which you already paid for. Where there's a game, I think The Crew or Division or something, I think it's called The Crew, where people who this game has like a digital rights management, which is it's like a software lock, where every time you load up a game, you need to get permission for the game to run. Every time you want to play, you need it phones home over the internet to the manufacturer to say you're allowed to play it or not. It's the same as like if you had a car, where every time you tried to turn the ignition, it would communicate back to Ford or whoever and say, is this car allowed to start? So all these games are putting all these software locks on there to make sure that you're really a legitimate purchaser, even though pirates can usually get the way around it. So this is only really affecting legitimate customers. So what this with this game and what others are doing is they're saying, well, we haven't sold this game for a few years. We're not making enough money off it. It's not worth it for us to keep running the system that checks the key. We're going to just switch that off. So anyone who tries to play the game, they can't get in. Their ignition has been disabled essentially, and not being offered a refund or anything. It's just like, but just fundamentally, like we don't own anything. We're at the whims of what others allow us to do. Another example I just heard, there's like a video rental service called Redbox. They went bankrupt. Anyone who's purchased movies and whatnot, the whole library is just gone. They can't access anything which they paid for, and really what this is saying is, well, piracy is always justified because you don't get any of these problems when you pirate things, and they're actually building a case of piracy, if you ask me. And this is why we exist. This is why we're the Pirate Party, because it's not just about downloading things to get it for free or whatever. And we support creatives. We have policies that are targeted towards supporting creatives, but it's this disparity here where these big copyright holders, they keep control over us, and then we can't consume content how we want it when we want it. We need to keep constant internet connections. We got to only use certain devices that they allow us to in certain formats or qualities. It is completely a civil liberties issue where they basically just want control over our lives rather than letting us be free to just consume the content that we paid for.
Yeah. True.
John?
Okay, yeah, that's just something that I guess I'm echoing that I guess we're talking less and less about Yarra Council, so let's all accept that, I guess. But sort of feeding off of some of the stuff that Simon said. Now, there's so many stories about the abuse of copyright coming out of Hollywood, but I might just focus on one of them. There was the movie Forrest Gump, and after it was made, they went back to the writer and said, hey, that movie did all right. We're thinking of doing a sequel. And he said, well, hang on, the movie you made didn't actually make any money. and that's because of what's called Hollywood accounting. Now, you might think that basically Hollywood accounting grew into creative accounting. You might think creative accounting is about the numbers not adding up, but that's not the sort of creativity we're talking about. In fact, the numbers do add up. But there was a play where, this narrator was saying, you might think that the creative people at Hollywood are the directors or the actors or the producers, but no, the creative people in Hollywood are the accountants. Because what they do is they say, here's the business entity that makes the movies, and it buys these overpriced services from all the other firms that, provide production equipment and so on. And as a result of that, the notional business entity that makes the film doesn't actually make a profit. So the point out of all that is that the businesses really resented us copying films because they're saying we're denying them of their rightful rewards for the creativity, but they have no compulsion about screwing over their own creative partners on their side of the fence. So for me, that's sort of a lot of the hypocrisy around intellectual property, that sure, there is a legitimate reward for intellectual property. Someone works at something and maybe they're entitled to a return. And in a very narrow way, that's fair enough. But that tiny bit of truth has been way overloaded by so many corporations for monopolistic purposes. And obviously we have creative or Hollywood accounting into the mix. And I suppose I'll put in a plug for my own website, johnaugust.com.au, where I do write about these things. But, I certainly, echo those sentiments about a concern about intellectual property. The one missing ingredient is to try to make this legitimate concern get traction with the broader community in an election. That's the challenge. But I do think there's a certain degree of cynicism, paranoia, neuroticism about large corporations, sort of throwing their weight around. And I guess that is the thing to tap into. But yes, it's certainly a legitimate concern. The issue is to try to turn it into something with broader electoral traction.
Let's give a shout out to all the creative accountants out there, particularly the ones who are creative to help reduce the tax burden of the taxpayer. And
at Yarra, Simon, at Yarra City Council.
I guess being a creative accountant, it's a skill you could use for good or evil. We say hello to both, but we're on the side of the ones who use their powers for good. And
makes me think of the climate credits as well.
That's for evil for sure. Look, I just want to say that I'm enjoying this format where we're talking random stuff, but still related to the cause of being a pirate. There's a lot of crossover happening. Whether it's video games, fixing cars, content piracy. It's all interconnected.
You're right.
Also, shout out to a YouTuber, Lewis Rossman. He does a lot of good work on right to repair things and software rights. He goes over all this stuff. He repairs Apple products where they've been at the forefront of being anti-consumer. A lot of it boils down to consumer rights. It's a form of civil liberties, and as a consumer that buys stuff, I don't like being ripped off.
Yeah.
I guess in that sense, yeah, piracy is one of the last remaining resorts. I mean, how do you take on a monopoly like Electronic Arts? People find it so overwhelming. The notion of starting a grassroots political movement to change the laws around this, that many of them see that piracy is the only option left available to them. Especially if they can't vote. So.
Definitely, it's essentially like a protest because there's studies out there. Gabe Newells of Valve Software, who runs the Steam platform, has said it that consumers they want to spend money, they want to support the creators who produce the content, but it's an availability problem. When you make it easily available, people will buy it, and Steam are making billions of dollars off. And I remember in the early 2000s, as growing up, everyone was just pirating things. It wasn't It was just as easy to copy it than to buy it. But a platform like Steam just makes it very easy. You just click a few buttons, put in your payment details, and you get it. And everyone who deserves the money gets paid. And if people are still pirating these days, well, it's for a good reason. It's because they're not getting something that the legitimate copy offers. Being able to modify the game or run it without an internet connection. So maybe they have purchased it before, but it was revoked because of the storefront went bankrupt. Something like that. I would like to see licenses move to some sort of blockchain where they would never expire. At the moment, with the Steam platform, there's a bit of a rumor going around that if anything was to happen to the company, the master keys will be unlocked or whatever. I don't think that's actually true. Like there is a risk that it's something could happen. I mean, they seem to be run very ethically, but you don't know what could happen in the future. People spend thousands of dollars on worth of games, and if something bad was to happen, it could be gone just like that. And I guess you could always pirate it, but piracy is the less convenient option. We want to just click a few buttons and get what we want. We don't mind paying for convenience. Money is not the issue at all. And the same could be applied in auto industry, where like with John Deere, they limited the parts availability. I'm sure, Michael, you would have seen with you try and order a part, they might say, no, we don't do that anymore.
No longer available. Thank you. Yeah.
Or it could be maybe it is available, but only for their own repair channels.
Correct. If you don't know, yeah.
Or they're just not putting a lot of effort into the repair channels because they're just not taking repair seriously, because they're not building their car to last. They're building it to make a sale, and then it's a disposable product. Like you just throw it out like it's any other cheap plastic thing, and buy another one, and it's they're not cheap. It takes a lot of energy and resources to produce these things.
Yeah.
It's very wasteful. I hate waste. I hate throwing things out. Like, I know I have to. It's a problem, but you always want to make the maximum use of what you got. The world doesn't need more waste. That's the last thing we need.
Simon, if you oh, sorry, Jono, you think you were.
Oh, so go on, Michael.
I was going to say, if you when you next time you come over to the workshop, right, have a look at next door, the panel shop, and have a look at the back roller door. What's there? Bumper bars, plastic bumper bars, piled on one on top of the other. Doors, guards, just one little scratch, brand new, mate. They take them off and they put new shit on, and all that stuff just goes to landfill. Absolutely wasteful.
I just wanted to say I've helped Simon move, and I can definitely back up his claim that he doesn't like wasting. He doesn't like to sort of throw things away.
Yeah, Michael.
But also go back, Simon. You raised the point about Steam being the gatekeeper, and what's the moral compass of Steam. I wonder, have you guys heard, for instance, when ChatGPT was taking off, Steam was banning any sort of game related to AI, and you see Spotify as well. Spotify's banning AI music, and everybody can see that it's because if these people can't milk the content creators, then how are they supposed to get a profit anymore? If it's easy to create new games, if it's easy to create new music, that kills their business model. And so them banning this music, how can they stand on their high horse and say people shouldn't be able to break our rules? That's morally unjustifiable. Or how can they justify locking people out of consuming all this music, all these games?
I know Miles has got his hand up, but one topic I want to bring up from that is Spotify. They're very unethical. They pay barely anything to artists, and I've heard that artists can get millions of listens and only get a few dollars for it. It's they're not treating creators fairly. So but also of the major artists, they're keeping tight control over who they license their music to. For example, the Michael Jackson estate takes a very tight control of who may or may not use his music recordings and for what purpose. So one of my favorite games of all time is Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and it's a very iconic soundtrack. As soon as you start the game, it plays Michael Jackson, Billie Jean. Fantastic. The setting,
Catchy song,
the vibe. Yeah, it's really good. But in the later versions of the game, even though you've already bought the game, they actually remove the song because their license for that the video game maker made with the music
estate, yeah.
licensing company that expired, so they have to take songs out of the game that's already out there because they won't relicense it to them anymore, or they can't reach some business arrangement, and it's the consumers that suffer, and that effectively means that you're forced to become a pirate to put those soundtracks back into the song so that you can play it as it was originally intended. And it really if you're not a pirate, it really diminishes the value of the game.
I just wanted to say there's a great comment from Jed a little while back in text chat, which I want to read out. I've been seeing comments on various YouTube videos in the subject more and more that if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. Fucking A.
100%. I mean, just for the record, I haven't actually done any kind of piracy for decades. Like this is purely philosophical for me. This is not about getting stuff for free. This is about your rights online.
Simon's a philosophical pirate.
Exactly.
So it is 12:15. I'll invite any last opinions or comments to come forward, especially any for Michael and the Yarra City Council campaign, which is, when is it?
Oh, wow. October the 26th or 24th, I think, or 26th is the...
And
same as Queensland State.
yes.
Oh,
Yep.
okay,
So
there you go.
for those that are in Yarra, how can they vote for Michael?
Just it's a postal vote. Vote Michael. Independent. Only independents. We don't want Labor. We don't want Liberal. We don't want Greens. We don't want any form of parties apart from the Pirate Party.
A fusion.
And which wards or such?
Well,
which
I'm
ward are you in?
in Hoddle, Collingwood. Stephen's in McKillop, which is Fitzroy. Regent's in Yarra Bend. Who else? Ken Gomez is North Fitzroy. I don't know what they call it, probably North Fitzroy. And we've got Richmond, we've got Cremorne, Peter Azos, Victoria Chipperfield. Who's the other one? Yes, I can't think of the top of my head at the moment. So vote one, independent, nothing else.
I'd also suggest that if anyone is moved, get in touch with us at the Pirate Party. We can put you in touch with Michael. He holds Pirate Values. Also, Councillor Bridget O'Brien, she also holds Pirate Values. These two could really use some help in getting re-elected and keep Yarra Yarra transparent.
No, give it back to the people, Ben.
Yes.
Bring it back to the residents, nothing else. To the community, not to the hierarchy. The CEOs that's on $500,000 a year. There you go. Not bad, is it?
All right, I'd like to go on break on lunch for 1 hour. When we come back, the only remaining item will be party strategy and discussion, as well as general policy discussion. I have a short presentation I'd like to make, very related to this topic, in fact. and we'll host further discussions as well. So I invite everyone to consider whether you would like to make a presentation or contribute something to that general discussion on the topic of strategic planning, electoral planning, campaigns, or general policy work for the party. So thank you very much. You've joined us for the morning session and the elections earlier. And I'll now put the vote. Make a correction to that.
I'm gonna vote.
I don't want anyone to bot this vote, please. No bots here.
I'm voting.
Give that a hot minute for it to go through.
And thank you to Michael for coming online.
Oh, that's a pleasure. Well done.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah, that's all right. It's a pleasure, Miles. I've got to go chop some timber. We're not door knocking today.
So if we're talking, are we still actually streaming?
Wait until it is caught up on the YouTube page until I can confirm that's going. looks like we're back. Indeed we are. Excellent. Welcome back, everybody, to the final session of Congress for this July, and hopefully this will be the only National Congress that we need this year. We do occasionally require some emergency National Congresses, but fingers crossed that won't happen. Our fearless leader, Miles, is currently finishing up a presentation he'll give in a moment, so it falls to me to open and resume this session. I thought I might kick off with a discussion topic, maybe for people who aren't Miles, while he's finishing up there, and get some opinions on our, the social media presence which we've, inherited. There's, there's something like 10,000 people following the Facebook page, or so Facebook tells me on occasion. Lots of Twitter followers, that sort of thing. But we don't really use that resource anymore. So I wanted to gauge people's opinions on, how best we can use this sort of thing. Do we focus on exclusively pirate branded content? Do we co-brand content with Fusion? Do we just repost Fusion branded content every so often? Do we leave it dead? What sort of level of activity should we be pushing into this sort of thing? Especially given, there is an election coming up. We should, it's a resource available to us, so we should figure out how best to use it. I see Simon's got his video on. So Simon, do you have thoughts?
Do I have thoughts? Boy, do I have thoughts.
Oh boy, do I have thoughts, says Simon.
I have a lot of thoughts. Actually, it did get me thinking. This question you posted in the chat, and it's sort of bringing up some old ideas and some new ideas. I guess I didn't read out my nomination statement to be deputy secretary, but what I did put in there is that most of my work is primarily on the Fusion side of things. I didn't realize that actually we had that many followers. So I guess my first question would be, how many followers do we have compared to Fusion, which is actually the bigger channel on Facebook? Just looking. Fusion.
We only have a couple of thousand Fusion followers. The pirate presence is much more extensive.
Really? Okay. That's interesting. I suppose
1,400 followers on Facebook.
Look, I'll give you the way I see things, and it's not necessarily just because I see it, meaning that everyone has to see it that way. I'm sure others would be different, but it's one potential way of doing it. I make no secret that the majority of my work is being done on the Fusion level as a pirate party member, and I see value in the broader scheme of things. So how I think I would like to see it is the political activities, political campaigns, anything that's to do with getting someone elected, elections, that sort of thing, I think is best handled on the Fusion side of things as pirates. And anything that's more philosophical and activism, non-partisan, getting deep into issues from a pirate perspective, to being, we were like the free running discussion we had earlier, where we were talking about civil rights, right to repair, how things affect the environment, all these consumer rights, all these things. It's not. It is political. Everything is political, but it's more than political. It's a broader thing,
And I know in the past there have been ideas about Pirate Bureau or Pirate Movement to sort of be a bit like a think tank. So I could suggest that we could become Pirate Radio, a good concept, where an old concept, just broadcasts like free flowing discussions like we have been doing. We always have interesting things to say from a pirate perspective, and we could use this channel to broadcast our ideas. And if we can use our ideas to encourage people to follow through to the pirate party side of things on a fusion level, then that's great. Or if we can just advocate for these issues in general without it necessarily translating, then that's also a win also. So perhaps there's a way that we could have two divisions that can coexist.
Actually, yeah, Simon, actually on that point, yeah, like getting involved in the pirates, I do notice there seems to be like a shortage of content about, what we believe in and what the problems in the world are. Yeah.
Opening the floor to other ideas. Just because I have the idea doesn't make it canon.
But yeah, as well, if we were to make more free flowing conversation sort of content, then it should be easy enough to get AI to trim it down, the juiciest parts, post them on Instagram or wherever.
Yeah, or we could essentially be just YouTube, or podcast. So we could be targeting that someone only needs to listen, not necessarily have visual aids for anything. But if someone wants to watch us talk, that's welcome, and we can cut out segments into of particular topic areas. Get that posted, share it on different websites and Reddit, Facebook. Say here's the idea, and give a shout out. This is if you want more, this is where you come and get it. Where that came from. Yeah, I think we have quite interesting ideas that other people would be interested in. I know you are, and you have a bit of a following from even people from other parties.
I'm thinking of the libertarians. Yeah.
They follow all your stuff.
Yeah, it was funny. I met actually. So when Miles, Simon, and we went to the thing with Julian Assange. I was surprised meeting some of the other libertarians, and they were saying that they'd been checking out the Non-Human Party website, and there I was thinking it was dead. Oh.
It's definitely thought-provoking. Oh yeah, of course. John, speak with someone with actual radio presenting experience. Go ahead.
Well, I suppose if someone's coming in cold, wanting to get involved in representing themselves politically, maybe fusion is an option there. But for me, I suppose running a campaign under the Pirate Party umbrella is something that I would much more motivate me. So I suppose it depends. But having said that, for someone who's new to it, maybe fusion would be a better route. But for me, the option of running an independent pirate campaign, I don't know. To me, that's more appealing and makes more sense. And I suppose as far as Owen, Simon, whatever, I don't know how you've managed to do it, but you've managed to secure yourself a reasonable profile that is in some sense larger than yourselves. Now, for me, it does feel like I have been yelling into a well for the last 10 years. Nobody sort of listens to me. At some level, that's how it feels. I mean, I think there are some people who listen to my radio show, but you might say they're opportunistic listeners rather than people who really come on board with any Pirate Party story, if you know what I mean. And the thing is, I think we have interesting discussions, but whether they will appeal to the broader public is I think, a bit of an unknown. But having said that, I shouldn't hold anybody back. And if you are actually successful in doing that, good luck to you. But notice me in my promotion of, Speaker's Corner. I've been doing that for ages, and I very rarely get any people from who are pirate identifying turning up to that. Now, the people who turn up to that anyway, some of them do find my pirate stuff interesting, but you guys seem to have a presence, I don't know, a following or whatever you might call it. And good luck to you, but I think that's a very hard thing to achieve. If you have achieved it, well, good luck to you and run with it. But I don't think you can just put conversations out there in the expectation that people outside of the fold will find it interesting. So for me, that linkage is the difficult one. But by all means, don't let me stop anyone from applying themselves to doing something. But, that's my more, pragmatic view of things.
Yeah. Actually, John, just curiously, how many people normally turn up to the Speaker's Corner?
Oh, well, I mean, it depends on the degrees to which you might say. Like, there are people who wander in for like 5 or 10 minutes, hang around and wander off. And we have quite a circulation of them. And occasionally I might talk about some topic that really brings people in. It might be advertising, bureaucracy, or Julian Assange. And you can tell a whole lot of people will actually stand there. I don't know, 10, 15 people will stand there, listen to what I've had to say. But then over 5 or 10 minutes, they'll either have other things to do or run out of interest. But, if you, I guess you're from Melbourne, I can only encourage you, if you are in Sydney on a Sunday, and the weather's reasonable, go in and check it out. But, let's say, I think one question is how many people, as it were, flit in and out. And, one question is how many people might hang around for at least 5 or 10 minutes. Like, that's a substantial number, or that's a substantial thing to do. And who knows, we might have 30, 40, 50 of them in a day. And then you've got the people who will actually sit down for an hour or so. And, I don't know, maybe 10 of them are regulars and 5 of them might be people you see on that day. And then, of course, there's a very frustrating number who stand there for 5 seconds, take your photo and move on. Now, those people I actually have a go at and, abuse them, but that's me sort of thing. So
what's wrong with that?
Well, I'm not an unpaid model for random photographers. Right?
Oh,
if people actually want to sit down and listen to what I have to say for 5 or 10 minutes, then I'm happy for them to take my photo. But if they're just, random photographers and I'm an unpaid model, they can fuck off, So, that's my attitude, I suppose. Now, look, I have no copyright over my image, but I can certainly use my prerogative and abuse people because I'm pissed off, right? I do have some degree of moderate pirate identity there. I can't make people do anything. I'm not going to lean on the law, but it's still my prerogative to be pissed off. Okay, that's the way I articulate it. So, so in a sense, look, a decent number of people will at least drop in for 5 or 10 minutes, and depending on the topic and how it resonates with people, they might actually take in what I have to say. And that has happened when I talk about advertising, economics, Julian Assange, a gamut of policy topics that are somewhat personal, somewhat pirate informed. So, it's hard to give you a definitive answer to that. But I can only say, if you are in Sydney on a Sunday between 2 and 5, turn up and check it out, and you'll maybe get a bit of a sense of it anyway. But I know that you guys do have a Speaker's Corner in Melbourne, and it doesn't quite have the oomph that the Sydney one does. But by all means, go along and check out your own Speaker's Corner in front of the library there. I think you have it in, I don't know how much energy it has at the moment, but you certainly did have a Speaker's Corner in Melbourne at one stage. Anyway, look, there's 2 people who want to speak. I'll shut up for the present.
And just a question for you, John. So I'm not familiar with the format of Speaker's Corner. So how does that actually work exactly?
Okay, well, one thing is, in spite of some people calling it a rabble, it's actually a lot more civilized and decent than the Speaker's Corner in London, which tends to be a lot more obnoxious, abusive, try certain religious zealots trying to, flex their muscles sort of thing. But basically, you have maybe 4 stands there. Some people will actually sit there and rant on for like 2 or 3 hours. Some of them, like me, will talk for 15 minutes or half an hour and then want to yield the podium to somebody else. Then you've got some people who like to talk about politics and history, but after about 1 or 2 hours, they're sort of feeling like a break and they'll pass it on. But sometimes you get this situation where a succession of people will actually come up on the ladder and have their spiel maybe for 5 minutes, maybe for 15 minutes, and you have this circulation. And, you know, people in the audience might invite other people to go off on the podium and, you know, have a spiel for like 5 or 10 minutes. So some people want to speak for 2 or 3 hours and claim their particular ladder. Sometimes there's a ladder which is a bit more open access and circulating, with people probably talking for at most half an hour. For me, I tend to talk for about half an hour because I run out of puff. But if I really did prepare myself and have a list of topics to talk about, I probably could talk about a lot more things. And then, you know, a moderate number of people will just have a bit of a listen. You know, some of them will be, you know, feral libertarians who really have their axe to grind, and you only notice them after they've been passively listening to you for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then you just realise, hang on, they've got an agenda. And what I do challenge some people who are getting a bit annoying. I say, well, look, why don't you come up onto the podium and speak for 5 or 10 minutes? And for a moderate number of them, that actually quietens them down a bit. Some of them obviously might get up behind the stand, but, you know, we do have that, what you might call the sharing tradition of sharing and a tradition of free speech. So there are, like, you know, vaccine deniers, you know, global warming deniers, all those sorts of people, and they do have their piece. And while I personally disagree with them, I have drunk the Kool-Aid as far as Speaker's Corner is concerned, and we do have that very strong commitment to freedom of speech. But obviously, if you're not an interesting speaker or you piss off too many people, then you won't have an audience. And one of the things I do sometimes say when I'm being a bit provocative, you know, there are 2 important rights. You have the right to speak out, and everyone else has the right to ignore you. And normally that freaks people out at least a little bit and gets them thinking. But anyway, I think, Owen, you wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking, actually, a good venue I found the other day. I go to comedy quite a lot. And, yeah, I gave my second comedy set the other day and managed to fit in some plugs for Fusion. And I guess I managed to, I think, strike the right balance between, you know, I didn't explicitly say I'm a candidate or, you know, part of the executive or anything. It just, you know, came out some of the stories about, you know, promoting the Fusion Party and why some of the other parties are bad. And yeah, you know, like I already knew the organizers here, so they weren't that annoyed or anything. But yeah, I got the impression like even the audience didn't really mind, didn't think it was too political. So yeah, I'm planning on doing it more around the comedy clubs in Melbourne.
Okay, well, there's 2 things I'll say there. One is that when we were talking about Julian Assange, someone did actually challenge me about what things were exposed by WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
And I actually focused on the cables to do with the US State Department, because once you look at them in detail, it's clear just how much the US State Department pursues or goes into bat on behalf of international US corporate interests. And one of the most notable stories is that I think it was Uruguay that wanted to move towards open source. And it was the US State Department that was trying to coerce them into going on with Microsoft sort of Word and that sort of thing.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Right? Now the thing is, that was more in answer to a challenge that someone had about, you know, what good has WikiLeaks done? And in a sense, that was just something I grabbed hold of because I'm more familiar with it. I mean, there are lots of other stories about them going into bat on behalf of drug companies and various other US corporate interests, but that was the one that was close to hand. So the nice thing was there was a bit of an overlap. I was answering a question about WikiLeaks and the US State Department, but I actually managed to put forward a particular view on intellectual property that sort of morphed in with it. So, you know, so that was a nice thing that happened there. So I think there was another thing I was thinking of, but now I've lost my train of thought. But Simon, I think you wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for sharing the format of Speaker's Corner. Sounds like it's just like a place where anyone can just come in and figuratively or maybe even literally jump on a soapbox, start talking, and anyone who's interested to hear ideas can show up and see what they find interesting. That sounds pretty cool. And I'm also interested to know what other formats you have been using to talk, like radio in particular, or podcasts or anything like that.
Well, there's obviously the radio shows, there's the podcast site. Now, one thing that I've recently been getting into has been Twitter. And I had my, my experience of sort of learning about Twitter and how to mouth off there effectively. Because one of the things maybe you guys have all gone through this learning experience, but one thing I realized was commenting on what some famous person has said isn't going to get you anywhere. What you want to do is comment or like posts by, shall we say, middle to low tier public figures, because your comments will actually be paid attention to, while if you comment on what someone famous has said, you will just get lost in the wash. Now, obviously, I don't always follow my own rules. Very occasionally, I will like something what someone famous has said if I really agree ideologically with what they're saying, and I think it's worth giving a bit of a boost. But I have made my snarky, cynical, somewhat humorous comments, and at times they have had they've got some traction on Twitter. So I guess if you want to check out what I've said on Twitter and how sometimes I get a reply, there was this loopy libertarian who was sort of saying, is bureaucracy a waste or is it wasteful or something? And I just made some flippant remark, that's asking the wrong question. And I thought this would degenerate into some degree of hostility. And he did actually say, well, what is the right question to ask? And I said, bureaucracy should be transparent, accountable, fit for purpose, and maybe efficient. And we ask what the bureaucracy needs to do, and then we can figure out how large it needs to be. And that was actually a civilized exchange. And then another thing, when I was sort of getting narky about Optus and Telstra, Miles will know that I get pissed off about a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of entities. But I was making the comment that, I used to think that Optus were there to keep Telstra honest. Then I changed my mind and thought, well, maybe Telstra are keeping Optus honest. But now they've both done either idiot or arsehole things, and I'm just confused. And that comment did actually get a moderate amount of traction. And then I was muttering about maybe getting on board with Vodafone, but my mobile phone, my Pine phone didn't work with Vodafone. So I have actually had a small amount of success on Twitter, but I have changed my pitch to sort of talk about politics in a certain sort of way. And I realise I'm being a little bit controversial, but people who are intentionally really obnoxiously controversial will get further than me, but I've made that choice. But what was the other thing? I think, Owen, you were talking about comics. And one of the things that I've said for a very long time, that there's 3 or 4 people that know what's going on in the world. And I said, one of them is taxi drivers. The second one is stand-up comics, particularly those doing your so-called observational comedy. And then I did say further down the tier is some journalists and some academics. So, I was actually identifying number 1, taxi drivers, number 2, comics. So, there's it has actually been said by a moderate number of that there's a big overlap between comedy and what you might call a very objective anthropological view of the world that is sometimes biting, but sometimes humorous, but also sometimes very damn true. And it's the observational comics who give those sorts of perspectives. And obviously, Owen, you would have had that sort of experience, because on my show, I make a lot of, cynical, sarcastic remarks, not all the time, but often enough. So I'm not aiming
not all the time. Okay.
I'm not aiming for laugh out loud comedy, but I do try to keep things a little bit humorous at some level. And there was an academic out of Queensland, goodness me, Dr. Cameron Murray. I used to say, well, I still say, he's an advanced practitioner in applied cynicism. And that's one of the things I describe some people, because he talks about whatever government scheme being smoke and mirrors to cover up X, Y, Z. And some people are better than others at doing that. Obviously, maybe I do a little bit myself. But Dr. Cameron Murray, he's particularly good at those sorts of cynical, as I say, advanced practitioner in applied cynicism. I think that applies to some people and includes Cameron Murray. But Simon, do you still have your hand up? Is that because you've left the blinker on, or you actually want to say something?
No, yeah, I want to say. Yeah, I think we can agree. Twitter's quite a bit of a cesspit, but occasionally you do get a few gems out of it. It's just one of those things in the world. What was I going to say? Oh, with comedy. Yeah, I think any content that we put out, we should just label it as comedy, just to prevent getting cancelled. So that you get a creative license to say whatever you want when you say it's comedy. Really, it doesn't have to be funny. So seems.
Simon, allow me to put forward the radical idea that perhaps we should be taken seriously, and our ideas are a meaningful way to propose a better.
But the ideas are real, so you let the idea stand up on its own, and the ones that fall flat, it's just comedy.
Well, as I say, in my radio show, I do not intend it to be like half an hour of comedy of one line, a quip after the other. But you might say a lot of what I say has a certain sarcastic, cynical tone to it, and maybe 1 in 10 things have what you'd get a wry smile. But as I say, I'm not trying to be a laugh out loud comic. That's not the
I think it's sort of what Friendly Geordies does with his content, where he gets a lot of serious things out there from time to time, and then but he also peppers it with a lot of jokes, and I don't particularly find his humor funny, but it's still it crosses the threshold where he can get away with saying a lot of things where if it was 100% serious, it wouldn't be taken so kindly. So
Friendly Geordies does satire. Ultimately, it's destructive, although useful in its own way. We're proposing a new change, a new future for Australian society, and maybe even for the world as well, where we propose constructive changes, things we want to build, things we want to achieve, the good things that we want to see.
So let's not call it comedy until we get cancelled. Then we'll say it's comedy. We can say that after the fact.
Ever worked in the history of
I realise Miles is about to say something, so I can sort of try to wind down. But one of the other things that I did talk about was the broken promise of the internet. How the internet was going to be this thing that would enable us, would educate us, and so on. And it's basically been taken over by conspiracy theorists, people peddling, quackery cures, and monopolistic platforms like Facebook or whatever. So in some sense, the promise of the internet has been fundamentally broken. And there was actually one person in the internet, or one person in the audience, I should say, at Speaker's Corner. And his challenge to me was that he said, look, I agree with what you're saying 100%, but what's the solution? And I guess that did get me thinking. But one of the things that I guess I've realised is it's good to talk about the problems, because you might be able to talk about the problems in an intriguing way that people sort of go, wow, that is an interesting perspective. But yes, it's a good idea to follow through with some sort of an answer. And obviously, as a political party, I guess we want to have solutions that we're putting forward as well as identifying the problem. But let me tell you, when it comes to like issues of transparency and whistleblowers and so on, it's worthwhile talking about them in an interesting way that hopefully cuts through, even if it is just identifying the problem. But yes, we want to have part of our story should be about a solution, not just identifying a problem. But I think, Simon, you wanted to say something, but Miles, I think you've got your speech ready, so we should wind this one down and move on to Miles, I guess. But Simon, look, I'll give you the last word and then we'll move on to Miles. There we go.
Just one last word. I have two things I wanted to ask from you, John. And let's just try and keep it short. Firstly, have you done work actually, as in AM, FM podcasts YouTube discussions, anything of that nature, or just Speaker's Corner and?
Oh, well, actually, that's right. Now that you mention it, goodness me, Milspec, he's one of my fans, but I have actually appeared on the Economics Explored podcast in actually coming out of Brisbane. So there's, goodness me, Gene Tunney. He runs the whole Economics Explored podcast.
And how did you find that for reaching an audience? Did you compared to doing a physical event?
Well, I can't really comment. What I can say is that Gene seems to be willing to keep me revisiting again and again and again. And sometimes when you might actually hear it on the podcast, sometimes I edit out some of my narky comments. I remember saying that Georges are like the drunken guy with a guitar at a party who won't leave you alone, right? and I said that, but he actually edited that one out, because he was saying, "Oh, what's this Georges thing about?" And I don't know what experience you people have had with Georges, but I mean, I identify as a Georges, but by golly, some of us are quite feral, like you wouldn't believe. So
it sounds like there's a lot of intellectual discussions to be had, and perhaps instead of relying on a random person on the street to necessarily be interested.
What I would also say is, just like my experience on Twitter, don't approach the first tier public figures, right? Or don't hang off the first tier public figures, because you'll just get lost in the wash.
No. We would need to carve out our own content,
right,
rather than just repeating what other people are saying.
I'm coming to some sort of a conclusion here. The lesson that I've learnt. I have reached out to like the economics report on Radio National or whatever it is. And, either my emails went into spam or they just bloody ignored me. But notice I talked to someone who you might call is a middle tier podcast, middle tier public figure, and they're more likely to take you seriously.
Oh, yeah, so we've seen that with confusion campaigns, that the mainstream media, they just completely ignore us, basically, as if we don't even exist. So you definitely got to pick who would be interested.
Dare I say it, but in evolution, there's the idea that being second or third best can in fact be a niche, like, because of the way you've adapted. And like in Sydney, once upon a time, Channel 10 were ranked number 3 behind like Channel 9 and Channel 7. This is a Sydney thing. But basically, they were ranking number 3, and they were just churning through the shows and churning through the money. And they were actually respectively profitable at ranking number 3, because they weren't wasting their energy trying to get to second or first place, right? So what it is that there can actually be a niche to operate effectively at second or third. Like I've slowly learnt, maybe it's learned helplessness. I think some of the social psychologists talk about that, but never mind. But I've learnt not to be bothered with the high tier public figures, because you'll just be ignored. But go for a moderate tier public figure who is still trying to promote themselves, trying to reach out, and you will have more success.
Okay.
But that was meant to be a short answer, and I hope we don't have any other answers, because I know Miles is rearing to go with his presentation. So
we've got three minutes till 2:00. So just one more. I'm interested in the comment that you said, how you'd be more interested to run a campaign that's specifically pirate rather than going through Fusion. Just to start off with that, I think that when as a pirate in Fusion, it does. I do fully feel like a pirate within Fusion. I don't feel less of a pirate because it's through Fusion. I find that the Fusion people who are not pirates are quite like-minded. Like even Owen here, he was originally Science Party. We met through Fusion. He discovered the pirates through Fusion and then decided to defect over to us because he likes our ideas, I guess. So and even people who stick with their branch of choice. I've had people from the Vote Planet who are primarily all about climate change reaching out to me saying, "Hey, did you know that there's this David McBride event happening that I can't make it to?" Oh yeah, thanks for letting me know. I didn't know. I got to meet the guy. That was really good, and I'm like, wow, they actually care more than just environment stuff. They're taking on the whole platform of what us as pirates are sharing with others in the coalition. Even even Assange things. We had someone from science come over to that too. I don't think that like I would like to hear from you what you feel is a bit of a barrier in doing that crossover. I think from my perspective, if we can get those 10,000 pirate followers to be interested enough in this stuff to be a pirate in Fusion, I think that would be great and really broaden the collective strength of our movements. And I would even be interested in trying to get Fusion Party signed up as with Pirate Party International as one of the constituents, or something like that. Like I don't see any reason why Fusion movement should be considered a separate entity to what we're doing.
I can only say I'm speaking from my own experience, but when the pirates, I'm not sure peak or prime is quite the right expression, but when the pirates had their momentum and their energy maybe 12 years ago, to be a part of an election campaign then was absolutely wonderful. There was so much vibrancy, so much energy, so much coordination. My last election campaign as a part of Fusion, the last one I had, was ultimately frustrating. And I don't want to go back there. But, look, I remember what the pirates were like. And I have not been able to relate very well to Fusion. And look, let me also say that there are some people who are like the Pied Piper. They wander around and people just agglomerate and they have a whole pool of volunteers. Now, when I had an election campaign, even though it was inside under the Fusion umbrella, the only volunteers who actually came out of the woodwork to help me were people with a long and solid Pirate Party identity and background. So that is my experience. Now, look, if you can hang around in Fusion and be like the Pied Piper and attract a whole bunch of followers who will become volunteers and help you, well, good luck to you. I don't resolve from that. But my own personal experience is such that I have not been taken with the Fusion experience. And, what I'm describing is the few volunteers I had did not come out of Fusion. So that is my experience.
Sure.
And, it basically doesn't motivate me to get on board with the whole Fusion thing. Now, look, I actually interviewed some people from, Vote Planet or whatever on my own radio show. Again, I did reach out. I've in the past interviewed people from the Science Party. I've interviewed people from the Legalise Cannabis Party. So also Sustainable Population Australia. So in one sense, I have tried to spread the love, as it were, not just focus on my own particular political party. So to the extent I've had a platform, I have tried to be gracious and share that platform.
Oh, of course.
To the extent that I have been running a campaign, I've had much better experiences in times past from a pure pirate campaign than I ever had from a Fusion campaign. And and then there were whole things about once upon a time in Pirate Party, it doesn't happen now, but you had a whole bunch of people doing graphic design and they'd jump in and they'd do what you wanted, and like the whole graphic design thing, hanging out with Fusion was just frustrating. And then if you wanted to get a tweet out or a posting out, there was this bureaucratic overhead. It just was just so bloody painful. It was like pulling teeth. So that is my experience. It hasn't encouraged me to continue. Now, Simon, if you've had a different experience and Fusion is uplifting for you, well, good luck to you. I'm not going to stand in your way, but I've explained why I feel the way I do. I'm not trying to stop other people from doing their thing, but my personality, as I say, I am not the Pied Piper. I see some people around me who are the Pied Pipers and they just wander through and attract a whole bunch of followers. I am passionate. I am committed, but I'm not that person,
Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience, John. It's very valuable feedback. I came on Fusion after just at the very end of the of that 2022 election campaign, and I can see a lot of what you said was things that were not going great in Fusion at the time. I really got involved after that, and I could still see the remnants of what you were talking about. I can say that I've seen that the people running Fusion have changed over to new people, new directions. A lot of organization, a lot of bringing people together. Miles has been very instrumental in doing a lot of this, and I'll let him speak to it more. But I would say that the state of Fusion is very different now than what it was 2 years ago. And I'll let Miles talk about it. But from my perspective, I think it's worth giving it a second chance if you're open to that. But if not, I understand your experience and perspective as well. So, but thanks for sharing, John.
All right. Well, look, I probably should actually time out and give Miles a chance. But I can also say, look, it's just I would love to, if I'm speaking to people, I'd love for you to be able to see me. But I tried this yesterday, and between Jitsi and my laptop, there's some serious disagreement over actually accessing the camera. I'm a Linux person. Windows is complete bloody black art to me, so I just give up. But anyway, look, I'll wind down here and pass on to you, Miles.
Thanks a lot. So great, really interesting stuff, and I think those are important conversations to have. They are important conversations because we need to be open and transparent around the decisions we make and the rationale and the justifications. And so I guess from more of a meta level, there's many other different kinds of conversations which are important as well. And so the next presentation, which I'd like to give, is much more going back to the heart of why we are pirates, or a very, very big portion of it, not all of it, but a big portion of it, and is more close to the political analysis. So in my report or speech yesterday, I talked about how I firmly believe that there is at least as much of a need for pirate politics today as there was 20 years ago when the International Pirate Party movement started, but that in order to truly grasp that, we need to be willing and able to reinvent ourselves, to re-energize the movement both in Australia and internationally. And once again, I'm putting out there money over that we are an international movement. We have much stronger movements overseas, both in Europe, but also a growing US movement as well that's gone from strength to strength in the last few years, and how we are one of the very few Southern Hemisphere Pirate Party movements and the only active one within the Australasia region. But putting that aside, one of the original, possibly the original reason for the Pirate Party movements was obviously copyright reform, specifically in media and tech, with the focus on how US corporations were attempting to essentially set laws around the world that gave them a right to extract money against the common good and against open access. So in this presentation, I want to talk a little bit about, I think, possibly one of the most effective pillars we can not only return to the core of the issues at the heart of the pirate movement, but also rejuvenate and restart it in a way that maintains its strong relevance. So many of you will be aware of Cory Doctorow. He's a writer and blogger from the US and is often considered an honorary pirate. Recently, he, about 2 years ago, he co-wrote this book, Choke Point Capitalism, with Rebecca Giblin, who is actually professor of law at the Melbourne Law School and a researcher at the Australian National University. She's an ARC Future Fellow and a director of the Intellectual Property Research Institute of Australia. So this book has strong Australian roots and influence, even though it has a weak focus on US issues. But this book in particular talks to the heart of pirate politics more than anything I've read in a long time, coming from an honorary pirate and a researcher at the IP Research Institute of Australia, who is heavily supportive of our cause. So essentially, I want to talk through a few of the issues in this book and bring them back to being how I believe they are relevant to the Australian pirate movement today. So big business has captured culture. Disney bought Fox, and then they now own 35% of the US box office. Google and Facebook almost completely control digital ads that are embedded in music, videos, and online news. Google and Apple control almost everything on the mobile market, giving them a massive cut on games, books, music, and movies. Via YouTube, Google also controls both video streaming. Live Nation controls ticketing and concerts. In the US, one company dominates terrestrial radio, another dominates satellite radio. Amazon has an iron grip on book, ebook, and audiobook sales, as well as production. The only competitor to Amazon is Penguin Random House, which has only managed to survive by gobbling up other smaller publishers. And the big six book publishers from 10 years ago are now down to the big four. And we can also throw into that Spotify for music streaming, and companies like Steam for video games, or the Apple iStore. And so cultural markets are a winner-takes-all market, where a handful of highly paid celebrities and corporations control almost all of the rewards and remuneration, despite the vast number of artists and creators that are active. And in the US, the Federal Communications Commission, also mirrored by in Australia, the Australian Competition and Media Consumer Authority, I believe that's the acronym, but is supposed to actually, so these organizations are supposed to actually protect consumer welfare against corporate dominance and monopolies. But in the US, it's been spectacular failure, and I believe the Australian version has also similarly failed at preventing monopoly formation and anti-competitive behavior. And a good example of in the US is how after the merger of Comcast and NBC Universal a few years ago, one of the commissioners who was voting on the FCC about the question of this merger left 4 months later to become a senior vice president for government affairs at the newly merged Comcast and NBC Universal, which is an incredible conflict of interest. And there are many other examples as well of the complete and utter failure of regulation to promote fair and competitive and open markets. So in their book, Choke Point Capitalism, Doctorow and Giblin place the blame on the Chicago School of Economics and neoliberalism more broadly. In the 1980s, this financial movement pulled off a brilliant coup by refocusing in America the aim of regulatory policy away from anti-monopoly or away from monopolistic practices, and instead focus on promoting consumer welfare, which could be very narrowly interpreted as lower prices for consumers, only ever measured, of course, in the short term. And the way that companies were able to demonstrate these lower prices is through uncompetitive market capture from monopolistic practices. So this started in the Reagan years and hasn't stopped ever since then. And economic competition is now a thing of the past amongst major players in virtually every industry. So the method for this anti-competitive market dominance is best exemplified by Amazon. And so internally, they call their business model the virtual cycle of goods selection, where you have this goods selection, which leads to a better customer experience, which boosts traffic, which attracts more sellers, which means in turn you have a better selection. And then that allows you to provide a lower cost structure and lower prices, which again leads to a better customer experience. However, in reality, it functions as an anti-competitive flywheel, where they create what is functionally economic choke points to choke out all possible competition. And so the way they do this is by locking in users, locking in suppliers, eliminating competition, and then forcing their workers or employees and suppliers to accept lower and lower prices for their work. And so throughout the book, Doctorow and Giblin explore this concept of the anti-competitive flywheel and they introduce a new term to my vocabulary. So everyone is familiar with the concept of a monopoly, which is where you have one company or a small number of companies. In case of an oligopoly, it's a related concept, but a monopoly, it's one company with a dominance over the supply of all goods in that market. However, Dr. Owen Giblin introduced a new concept in my vocabulary called monopsony, which is in fact a dominance of buying power. And so Amazon and many other big media and big tech companies not only function as monopolies or oligopolies, but also have managed to position themselves as monopsonies, where they essentially dominate all of the buying power for artists and creators who are forced through many methods to actually go into these. And so Amazon is the perfect example here, where if you want to get an ebook published or an audiobook, then you are essentially forced to go to Amazon from the lack of any realistic competition. So this means that Amazon can and through other methods as well, but this is one of the methods Amazon uses to massively drive down the pay and royalties towards ebook writers and ebook producers. So what are some of the solutions that Dr. Owen Giblin proposed? They talk about some of the following measures: time limits on copyright contracts, which has obviously been Pirate Party policy since before the pirate movement started. And they sort of throw in a bit of a twist to this as well, talking about the option of copyright as a non-transferable right, or with limited amount of transfers. And there's a particularly radical measure they propose there, which I think has a huge amount of potential, which is where even if you were to hypothetically allow copyright to last for the lifetime of an author, as soon as that author dies, or after 10 years, let's say, then copyright automatically returns back to the original author. And this is a particularly radical notion, and I believe it's they have a special name for it. I think it's second resale or second point or something. This fascinating concept that you might keep the current copyright term of 70 years plus life of the author, or 50 years, or some extreme value, extreme length of time, but you have 10 years from the first point of registering copyright, and after that 10 years, if you have sold that or transferred it on, it automatically returns to you. And so there's a lot of arguments for why copyright should be shortened, or why there should be lock-ins towards the original creator and away from resellers or middlemen corporations. But some of the basic research, which has always underpinned the Australian Pirate Party position, is that there is fundamentally a common good argument for open access to media, and this argument is in tension with the right of creators to be fairly rewarded. And so we look at this as sort of a sliding scale, where the financial value of copyright falls off quite rapidly after a work is created. However, the public good available from having certain copyrighted content, certain intellectual property or cultural media, by having that available, the common good is always constant. Everyone knows about the classics, the great classics of film and literature and media, some of which are hundreds or thousands, in some cases many thousands of years old, the oldest works of literature in human species. But though there is still a common good from consuming that culture and discussing it and remixing it and promoting it, that it's still powerful. And so we argue that in principle, that copyright should allow for fair remuneration for the author for a given period. And the Pirate Party proposal is, I believe it's either 19 or 20 years, which is quite generous, we believe. And after that, automatically reverts to the commons. Now, the next proposal by Dr. Owen Giblin is radical interoperability between devices and platforms. And so imagine if you could chat to your Facebook, Instagram friends or Twitter friends on the platform of your choice. Imagine if you could move music and movies between the devices of your choice without any restrictions. And Fediverse is an approach which is promising here. And similarly as well, Pirates, we try to practice what we preach. And so we, although there were many complaints about moving to Discord initially and continually and still and since, and I hear you guys and I acknowledge that, Discord has problems and is not perfect. But at the same time, we try to promote interoperability by allowing you to connect via IRC or Mastodon, or I believe people connect via Fediverse as well. Is that right, Alex?
We maintain an IRC bridge. I'm not aware of further bridges. We maintained a Twitter Mastodon bridge for as long as we had one in place for as long as that was possible to exist. I'm not sure anyone connects to here via the Fediverse. I'm not sure how you'd set that up, but there's certainly, we connect IRC, and there's other pirate parties who connect other platforms to IRC as well. And so if you're in the what's called the Global Pirates channel on our Discord server, you're chatting to people sometimes on Telegram, and that's running via IRC. I note a comment from Jed B, who is appearing to us from IRC directly. I'll take this opportunity to reiterate complaints against the use of Discord. Jed, mate, I hear ya. And if we can find another platform, I'm looking forward to that. I'm watching the development of Matrix and the development of Zulip, and they're both good, and I hope that we can jump over to one of those someday. And IRC is getting better as well. Former member of the National Council, Dan Oakley, is involved heavily with IRC version 3 development.
That's really exciting. Congratulations to Dan, and good to hear news from him. So going back to my last few points here, the next recommendation from Dr. Owen Giblin is that there should be greater transparency with access to sales data, so information around purchases, sales, refunds, and the like. And there is a very strong argument to say that one-sided access to this information provides an enormous competitive advantage in contract negotiations, and a completely unfair one as well. And additionally allows for unlawful exploitation to occur on a massive scale. And so you can just imagine that if you're an ebook seller and you are going to negotiate for what your royalties rate is or what your refunds policy is, and then if you have no idea how many people actually refund your books, then Dr. Owen Giblin identified numerous instances in which there was actually a massive glitch with Amazon systems where they accidentally released the actual numbers of sales and refunds, and it showed that there had been massive exploitation going on to the amount of hundreds of millions of dollars to various artists, and prompted a massive class action lawsuit against Amazon. So the next option is minimum wages for creative work, the next recommendation. And so get rid of piecework or purely royalty-based contracts. Instead, put in a floor for creative artists, and to a greater or lesser extent, a guarantee for work. As I believe on a personal level that there is probably no higher human endeavor than engaging in creative work or community work or cultural work to promote the highest achievements of the human species and the greatest most free and healthy forms of expression of human identity. And so this, above everything else, is what should be rewarded by the human race, by the human species, by society, rewarded and encouraged. The next recommendation by Dr. Owen Giblin is strong unionization and collective bargaining. And there was a huge success story recently where almost every artist in Hollywood, this is actually about six or 7 years ago, I think, where almost every artist in Hollywood collectively fired their agents. And the reason for this is, at the time, that all of the major agencies, artist agencies in Hollywood, had somehow managed to get themselves into a position where they're representing both the artist, in this case actors and directors and writers, but also representing the studios themselves, the movie production studios. And it is simply insane, obscene, in fact, to me, that such an enormous conflict of interest could ever have happened or been allowed. And we can simply point at the utter failure of regulation in the US and most likely elsewhere around the world, but in the US in this case, that failure of regulation and governments to actually step in and do what was necessary to ensure that workers could be fairly paid and there was fair market conditions. And it was collective bargaining and a... Okay.
I'll let you know when YouTube thinks we're back.
Yeah, I'm watching as well. YouTube's getting signal. Testing. Hello. Yep. Okay, I think we're back. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Jitsi doesn't seem to like direct streaming. And I was right mid-thought as well. So anyway, there was an enormous conflict of interest here by the agencies. And sorry, hang on, I'm an idiot. This was the Writers Guild strike, wasn't it?
That was a year
in
ago.
In 2023.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think that was a separate one. However, the Writers Guild strike in 2023, it is the largest and second longest labor strike they've ever performed, and led to enormous success in restoring fair pay and protections against AI copywriters. So the final recommendation, which comes more, I guess, from a pirate perspective and less from the book itself, more from my own advocacy, is collective ownership of media, culture, and content. And so we can talk about time limits on copyright, fair time limits on copyright. We can talk about open transparency, but transparency and open data. But ultimately, what I think we should be campaigning for is open society, where yes, we can look at limited term copyright reform. We can look at economic regulations, which make common sense. We can look at workers' rights reform, but ultimately we need to be talking and thinking about the society that we want, the future that we want to see in Australia, but also around the world, and that through the collective ownership of our common future, through open access to data, through open government, through transparency, and through the ability, the right of all human beings to participate in culture, to participate in society on an equal and fair basis. And that is the right of all human beings. And that fundamentally is our mission. Just like the Pirate Wheel yesterday from Rick Falkfinger, one of the key founders of the Pirate Party, almost 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that fundamentally the strongest principle underlying all pirate politics is about empowerment, and that everything else flows from that empowerment. So I will. That's all. I will share my slides, and I'll share my speech notes, and I'm happy to take conversations and questions if anyone has thoughts they'd like to add on to that. As I've said to other people as well about National Congress, this is the time to soapbox. This is the time to preach to the choir. So get it out there. Let's hear thoughts.
I wonder, actually, Miles, you mentioned Cory Doctorow and Rebecca Giblin. They were pitching the idea of a floor for creative works. One of the problems I see in the current copyright system is the immense complexity that I guess if we had universal basic income, for instance, wouldn't that help make, like, if you imagine, I want to license a song for like the background of some, let's say, a skating video, and then like, how do I sort out all the licensing fees and royalties for that? How many views is my skating video going to get? Like, it's just a nightmare to deal with. Versus like, if there was universal basic income, then like the artist who made the song is already going to get enough money to live, and then can't we just forget about many of these payments?
Mm-hmm.
I guess do you see, is this part of the power of UBI that many of these payments can just disappear?
I think so, yeah. But more than anything else, UBI offers flexibility and offers choice. And my personal strand of politics, I consider myself a libertarian socialist, and fundamentally, I do advocate for freedom, but the freedom that I advocate for comes from greater choice and greater flexibility. And that is fundamentally what UBI offers, that that artists and creators will have, or should have, the choice to release all of their work, all of their products into public domain. and allow the usage of those for anyone, for non-commercial purposes, for purposes to promote the public good or the common good.
I guess the introduction to UBI then would allow more people to pursue the arts. That would be one benefit, yeah.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have any thoughts or comments or suggestions? I noticed there's been a lot of discussion and comments going on in text chat.
When we're finished talking about the book stuff, perhaps you could give us a Fusion update.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy to. I can, what I can actually do, I can actually move over to that now because it looks like the conversation has started to die down a little bit. So yes, from a Fusion perspective.
Did you read my comment in the chat about that?
Oh, Jedby has a comment. At the moment, society isn't really at the point of a UBI allowing anyone to live comfortably, especially if they're trying to live in a major city. It's more that allows you to have a very basic roof over your head somewhere and not starve. So an update from a Fusion perspective, the previous campaigns, so far this year we've had 2 by-elections. There was the Dunkley by-election and the Inala by-election. And both those were quite short campaigns where we partnered with another party. In Dunkley, it was the Australian Democrats. In Inala, it was the Australian Progressives. Both of them were state by-elections, and both those parties were unregistered and ran as endorsed independents. The upcoming elections, we have we're proposing to run campaigns in the so we are running campaigns in the Victoria councils, sorry, but I also note that there's upcoming campaigns in Northern Territory, New South Wales, ACT, Queensland. Those are all states. So state is Northern Territory, Australian Capital Territory, and Queensland. And then there's a council election in New South Wales as well. We have had expressions of interest to run in those campaigns or organise for those campaigns or volunteer for those campaigns. What we haven't had is firm candidates come forward and commit heavily to running in order to build a campaign around them. And so these campaigns are ways to build up experience and to build up confidence and to build up skills in various aspects of running campaigns, as well as to recruit volunteers and obviously to promote our ideas and promote our policies. And so there's so many benefits to running in these campaigns. I really sort of can't understate them enough. And I highly encourage everyone to have a think about whether they can contribute or spend time or get involved. And the biggest thing at the moment that we really need is campaign organizers and, to a greater lesser extent, candidates. And that being a candidate is difficult, it's scary, it's tough. I've done it, and I know what it's like to go through that. Owen has done it and knows what it's like to go through that. John and Simon as well here in chat have all done it. And some of these guys are also planning to run again in the near future. So it can't really be that bad, I guess. But as a candidate, it is not only a bucket list item, which allows you a chance to really do something maybe even once in a lifetime, which most people never really get the chance to, but also gives you a chance to participate in building a new future for Australia, one which respects technology, evidence-based policy, integrates science into government, and truth-seeking into government and society as well. It allows you to be a thought leader and allows you to be a spokesperson for our movement. And so I think my sort of call to action, the volunteer roles that you have available, fundamentally everywhere, the most important need we have is for more candidates, more people willing to step up and take a leadership role for the future of Australia.
Oh, actually, Miles, just to add to that point, in terms of the campaigns coming up and where we're active, I should mention as well that Fusion's running some YouTube ads at the moment, and actually today it's got up to 20,000 impressions. 20,000 views. People actually watching the whole video. And yeah, amongst other places where we could use candidates, Miles, in your seat, if you're not going to be the lower house candidate, then I mean, there are lots of ads running there. So if anyone puts a hand up there, then yeah, you'll have, Miles's support firsthand. And plus, all these people already exposed, already familiar with Fusion, because that's, I'm sure that the other people would back me up, that the biggest challenge running as a candidate is just the fact that so many people haven't even heard of your party, let alone, what the party stands for. So, yeah, we're clearing up a lot of that issue, yeah. Simon, Bryn, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, just want to touch on a little bit more of what came up before with John. This is not specifically targeted at John. It's just more of a general thing. But I think it's been a long time general gist of many pirates maybe feeling not quite connected to the Fusion side of things. So I made a comment in the Discord chat that I know that there has been some frictions from the early beginnings of Fusion, but I just want to reiterate that the people behind those frictions are no longer involved. I've been very impressed with the executive of Fusion. Miles has been a consistent force. He's still there. He's working with others of different branches who are on the same level as us. They're working very constructively and collaboratively rather than against each other or any kind of fighting for control or influence or resources. We're not trying to recruit each other. Owen's here on his own choice, not because we recruited him to come us. We're not there to plunder. It's all a common goal. And even with all these campaigns that we've got on the horizon that Miles was just talking about to try and get people involved in campaigns. These are campaigns. We are we are not pirates who have joined Fusion. We are actual pirates working in Fusion. We are still pirates. And a lot of these candidates that we're trying to recruit for are for pirates. So if anyone's holding back because it's through Fusion, you're actually it's pirates that are the ones who would be you'd be letting down. So please give it a shot. This is Miles is doing a lot of work behind the scenes on campaigns. So let's not treat it differently because of Fusion, because it's very much a pirate issue, and the people that I've worked with are very good people in Fusion. I cannot speak highly enough. So I would so Owen and Miles, they're both on executive team. They could probably speak a bit better to what's going on there, because I'm not involved day to day with that. But from what I've seen, I have been impressed.
Yeah, to Simon's point, pirates have a lot of influence over National Council. It's largely myself, Miles, and Drew doing most of the council work. Yeah.
I just got a bit of I should probably propose it into the Fusion Discord, an idea of do you think that we might need to get a nice instructive video aiming at people why Australia has compulsory attendance and ranked choice voting? In other words, the Swan by-election of 1918.
1918.
Thank you, Alex. That one, explain why it happened, and more specifically try and highlight the fact that it was the Conservatives, the coalition, as we would now call them, were the ones that got screwed by it.
I'd love to do some more direct democracy stuff. I'll be interested to hear that story later on as well, if we could hear it.
Yeah, as I was just saying, mate, that if you need someone to if you can get some more details and some help, I can try and. If somebody want to just do that as a quick highlight and say, this is, just so hopefully people might actually get the idea of why it happens and why potentially going back to having optional attendance, or why our position of, say, the attendance is compulsory, but with a slap on the wrist if you don't, might be better than actually toughening up the fines or just getting rid of it altogether. But at the very least, why we don't want first past the post back. Maybe a better system.
The chair recognizes the Honourable Secretary, Alex Jago.
So, pulling remote chair duties here, Jedby asks, there's a bit of a disconnect between being involved in local council campaigns, but only having the party, function, like registered on a federal level, and we've only really got federal policies, right? Like that's where our policy development is. So how do we resolve that disconnect? This one's, I guess, one for Simon and Miles, because you're at the coalface there.
I can answer that one. Yeah, obviously it's more work to go on policy platform, and I think I think that should be worked on the fusion side of things to bring greater perspectives on policies, and I think that's where we need more help on the fusion side of things is to bring more volunteers in to do all kinds of roles so that we can get policy development through, specifically on local councils. Actually, I don't think I can share a screen on this computer, but if someone can do a screen sharing of Miles, perhaps you could share the screen for the Fusion values framework that's been done. It's basically you could see it as a bit like a catch-all for any sort of policy. Whatever steps that you would need to. That's the one. Make sure that's on the YouTube as well. But essentially, these are the steps which a potential policy would need to pass through to work out if that is something that's in line with the values. And this is of Fusion, but I don't see any incompatibility specifically when it comes to Pirate either. Like we've got personal liberty in there, and we care about advancement, ecological harmony. Yes, we love the environment, safety. Well, we don't want dangerous things. I don't think ethical conduct, that's very important to us. Equity. Yes, we're very fair as pirates. So I don't see. So anything that any potential issue which could come up can be run through the framework. We do need to run policies through as well, and we also got like on a council level, like as we had Michael on before, we've had Bridget speak to us previously. They're running independent campaigns. That means they have independent decision making, but the values that are aligned with us, they've been through this framework. They understand and agree. So it doesn't. It's on a local level, things are very individualized. It's hard to make one policy platform that could apply to every council in Australia. You got to look at it more broadly. We want transparency, accountability. Obviously we have these federal level ideas, which are, if there's a way that we can they could fit that into their campaigns, yeah, great. They definitely do so. I know Bridget, for example, she's heavily involved with a lot of local environmental things. She rescues bats from the local river area where the bats live. So everything's in line with this. So yeah, yes, there's some more work to sort of articulate the policies and market them. But as far as being relevant to local council or state or federal, it's definitely relevant no matter what we do. And this is this framework thing here. This is also a really good example of how Fusion has come a long way since those early beginnings, where the people on the executive have really come together to work constructively and not just haphazardly get through and just try desperately to stay registered or anything like that. But I'll ask important fundamental questions. What actually is Fusion? What do we actually stand for? What is the meaning and the philosophy behind it? So this is Fusion and it's Pirate. So I have nothing but good things to say here, and think that the more people that we can get involved, so that we can articulate and share with the masses, the better off we would be to get all our Pirate and Fusion ideas out there.
Thanks a lot, Simon. The chair recognises the Honourable Simon Neeslaw, former candidate for Bentley and possible future candidate for
Isaacs potentially. We'll see about that.
Can't announce that yet.
It's a maybe. I'm publicly saying maybe. That's perfectly fine. If there is anyone else out there who was looking to do it and would run for Isaacs to go against Mark Dreyfus, who put put the whistleblowers in jail, David McBride, and Richard Boyle's also facing jail time. And they've got like a better profile and can do a better job than me. Like 100% get behind them. It's not that would want to run to elevate myself. It's not about me. It's about the people. It's about the country. So if no one else can do it or would do it, I would step up. Maybe my missus might want to do something as well. So we'll see. But if someone else wants to come up who might be watching from outside the party, even just please get in touch, and I'd be very happy to stand aside. Like I've got a lot of things on my plate. Doing election campaigns not really a thing that I want to be doing. It's just a thing where if not, it's just a thing that I do if no one else won't.
Something you think is important.
Yeah, of course. Do you have anything to share on these sort of topics, Miles, and what your experience within Fusion has been to try and see if any pirates will give them another shot or come over?
I wanted to also comment on Jed's thing. I think that was a good point to bring up about. So there's a little bit of disconnect between being involved in local council campaigns, but having the party operate at a federal level and thus only have federal policies. I think this is more from a lack of energy and motivation to get involved with state and local politics, as compared rather than for any other reason. But there's a strong strategic impetus for us to shift more towards state and especially local politics. As councils, we have a far higher potential to get people elected, which brings with it a huge amount of influence and credibility as having elected members, even if only at a council level. Additionally, getting council elected, necessary step for that is having strong local branches and a strong local presence, which is the basis for running a campaign at any level. And so, but with the very hyper-local focus of campaigns, you have much greater opportunity to actually organize around those topics. And so I think the working with Bridget O'Brien and Michael Glenatsis in the City of Yarra council campaign, the things which have really stood out to me as where at least pirate politics are most relevant is the implementation of a better use of technology in council, particularly around transparency and governance. So things like live streaming, monitoring, observation, recording of minutes, addition of transparency to be embedded throughout all council operations, especially councillor meetings and decision-making processes. Greater community input as well in a direct democratic sense. So giving more community opportunities for feedback, and even maybe I'm a bit of a radical, but I think that even implementing direct democracy at a council level is the most straightforward and ideal pathway to give residents meaningful votes on issues, and to a greater or lesser extent sidestepping the councillors themselves. I think that has enormous potential and is something that no one else except for Flux Party, Vote Flux, has ever actually talked about or considered or proposed. And so broadly as well, on more sort of a fusion type platform, the implementation of evidence-based policy, science, and rationalism, as well as obviously support for open government, is something that is 1000% relevant even to a council level, where if we can implement more of that in council decision-making processes, that can only be good for those local councils. And by extension, we can lead a wave of change throughout all of Australia as well.
Thank you,
So
Miles.
it is almost 3 o'clock. We are scheduled to go for another hour, I believe. However, I'm quite happy to shortly move towards a close for National Congress. If no one has any final thoughts or comments which they wish to put out there. The Honourable Secretary Alex Jago has reminded me that we do have final business to transact, and that is to choose the location for the next National Congress. That is a formal decision that has to be made. Traditionally, a new tradition for the last few years has been for us to hold this entirely online. It started during COVID and has proved to be convenient and also, to a great lesser extent, quite successful to for enabling pirate participation and accessibility and inclusivity. Even if we were to go back to in-person, I would propose that we always have had a strong online and remote participation presence, and with improved access to technology, understanding of how online participation works, we'd be able to do it far better these days than ever before, even though we haven't had an in-person Congress for a number of years. I am feeling more and more motivated and inspired to propose a in-person Congress either next year or in coming years. And I just want to flag that as well, that perhaps not next year, but at the very least that we could put out a survey of members and supporters to see if we can get some hard numbers about who would attend in person and who would be willing to travel for different locations around Australia. So I want to open the floor for a few minutes and hear what people's thoughts are about where the next location should be. Being online is fine. It is inclusive. Everyone has equal and fair participation here. However, there is also the exciting option of having an in-person meetup and face-to-face. Jed B in chat is nominating Hobart or Canberra. I've been to the Hobart National Congresses. It was cold, but luckily the last one I went to, I drank enough that I did not notice. Okay. Canberra is another good suggestion. I also want to throw in a bit of a crazy one. If we go in person, Alice Springs as the very literal geographic heart of Australia, but also in some ways a sort of spiritual, symbolic heart of Australia too. I've been to Alice. It is an incredible country out there, and really traveling to Alice Springs is really something I highly encourage for every Australian.
Can we go on a drag queen bus?
We can, but
it can be a caravan.
Uluru, I'm afraid.
A drag queen caravan.
Simon is proposing watch parties in each city. That's a fantastic idea. It does require some organising component in each city, which is a bit of a barrier, but can absolutely happen even for fully online national councils.
For Melbourne, we could hold it at Owen's party pad.
In Brisbane, we can hold it at my place. I've got a pretty nice apartment.
Nice.
Oh yeah, we got to have a party soon as well. The I'm now officially the fusion candidate for Wills. So yeah, I need to have a big campaign launch in Melbourne.
Congratulations, and very exciting. So I'll offer some any final. Alex is proposing to keep it online. I'm perfectly happy with that, and not a bad idea at all. But perhaps even if we were to hold online, I would definitely still be wanting to consider for the year after to hold an in-person event. Can I allow final space for anyone who wants to actually propose an in-person location, make a serious proposal, and perhaps move a motion on it? That is the right of every pirate member.
Could,
And I
could
would
we
encourage
could
it.
we throw a dart at a map and see where it lands, and we just all go there?
You are free to do that, Simon, if you want. There's if you want to make that motion.
Wonder if there's like a online app that does that.
I'm almost certain there is some Apple website that does that. Okay, I'm not seeing any proposals for next location, so in which case I'm going to propose, move a formal motion that National Congress be held online next year.
Could we do hybrid of just whoever is willing to host a party, a watch party? We could do it from each side, and we keep it streaming still.
Yeah, absolutely, and we don't even need a motion for that, but just that the formal designated central location be online or in person somewhere. And I have encouraged that in the past. It hasn't happened often. Not aware that it's happened at all. Maybe, I don't know. A little bit longer for people to keep voting on that one. So in the event that this... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Bryn.
I was going to say, if we, instead of Alice Springs, we could even go even, I don't know, it would probably cost even more money, but how about moving it a little bit more further south and running it at Ulara?
Oh, what's there?
Oh, about 18k away from Uluru.
Okay.
I've been to the convention center there. It's a pretty special location. We can go on cultural tours. There's art museums. There's some incredible territory out there. Incredible geography and terrain. Hundreds of millions of years worth of history. Australia really is an ancient continent, geographically and culturally.
Yeah, so I was just saying, if you wanted Heart of Australia, why isn't that more?
Yeah, if this is a serious proposal, I would 100% go. I go caravan. I'd love to come out there.
A caravan traveling to the Northern Territory. It's never been done before, Simon. It'll never work.
The only other thing that would be really fun, I'll just better double check when's the appropriate day, but I know it wouldn't. I don't know if it'd be. When is it? I'll have to. I'm quickly check.
All right, I'm declaring that.
That's it. 1st of July. If we could have it. If we could have some sort of meeting, which would mean we would have to wait a couple of years for that, because.
I am placing a motion to end Congress. Please put your votes in chat. To adjourn for 1 year until 2025. So
maybe we can do Outback for following year or something.
Sure, many things are possible. Now, with that motion passing for us to be held online, Jed B, don't you dare vote against this. With that motion for next year's Congress to be held online, there is nothing to stop. And actually, I fully encourage people to organize watch cities in your own cities, watch parties. If you are interested in doing so, then we are absolutely able to help. That with the synchronization between the Pirate database and the Fusion database, we now have far more tools available to help coordinate and organize for Pirate politics.
Hey, the vote could still fail.
Don't you jinx this, Alex Jago. Don't you jinx this. But we have far more tools available, which is I am near certain there will be a renaissance of pirate politics with new tools and new mechanisms and new volunteers available to organise for the pirate movement in Australia, and also equally importantly as well to campaign for fusion party politics in Australia, as I believe our future is through that coalition, through that alliance of parties electorally, where while pirate politics will always have appeal and will always have a place and will always have a purpose, that in a broader movement we will always gain more influence, more appeal, more electability, and more opportunities and avenues to promote pirate politics in the future of Australia. So please do get involved in Fusion, and whether through volunteering or as a candidate. So I declare that motion passed, and with that, the Congress of 2024 is now over. Thank you very much to everyone who came and participated, and please do take away my message to participate in Fusion and consider that we are entering a new era of pirate politics.
I was just saying that, and then team meeting, if we could wait till 28, 29...
Is this a serious suggestion or a joke?
Well, it's just the fact is if we do it early 28, 29, it coincides with Cracker Night.
I don't know what that is.
Territory Day is legal in the NT to buy and set off your own fireworks.
Sure. Okay. Let's take that to the Discord and discuss on the Discord. Congress is over. Let's bring the stream down, please.
Yeah.
I'm keen for firecrackers. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bryn, if you could put a splash screen up just so we can finish on a high note, that would be lovely.
Certainly.
Well, I'll see you guys in the Discord. Thanks a lot for coming along this year.
Thanks. Thank you, Mars.
Thank you,
job.
everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Bryn, for the stream. Thank you, John, for the chat. Alex.
Thanks all, and see you later.
We'll touch base. See ya.